Okay, well, don't forget to have gone and got your free colouring page for one of Misha's colouring books. Command Colour, if you want to do it digitally, you can download it. There it is. And that's yours to keep. Congratulations, you got a freebie for coming today because Misha loves you. Yes, she does. She really does, actually.
Thank you.
So, to catch you up, Maddie, I am the real Ben. So, years ago, 10 nearly, in fact, I was at university and I came down with cancer, which is a variant known as Hodgkin's lymphoma. And essentially, I was offered a like Make-A-Wish type thing from these people from the Willow Foundation. The Willow Foundation were people who would do nice things for you, and amongst their choices were things, I feel like a game show host. Tonight, who's going to go into Ravenclaw and who's going into Slytherin? Find out when we come back. I was doing film, television, and radio studies at university at the time, and I was kind of hoping to go to Columbia Studios in America as part of a second year trip. Didn't happen, and so when I was having cancer during the second year and that trip wasn't going ahead, I was like, I would like to go to Leavesden Studios for my sort of Make-A-Wish, my special day. And they said no. They don't do that kind of thing. It's a working facility. Security, you know what it's like Marvel films and Star Wars films are like, no, it's like security. Like, you've got to sign a disclaimer to see the disclaimer sort of thing. But 6 months later, they emailed me back. And they're like, actually, yeah, they're going to let you be their one... Actually, I think it was a letter. I don't think it was an email. They're going to let you be your one exception for the year. So, suddenly I had to pick a responsible person to go down with me. That was my brother-in-law. And I had to sort of, you know, like when you're planning for a wedding, you're like, well, this person has to sit here, and they'll sit so far forward, and they can be on the head table. But he's going to get cheesed off if we do that, so we'll both put them on this table there, that kind of thing. I had to pick somebody to come on the trip with me. So that was my brother-in-law. Although my sisters are sort of big into Harry Potter, I always needed a driver. Now, they shoot Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts series in Leavesden, which is a pretty small town. In fact, for those of you who are English, I would really say it's more of a village than anything. And they shoot it in Leavesden, which you can miss. And in fact, the charity weren't even aware of quite exactly where they were filming, ironically. They sent us to the P.O. Box address. Yes, they did. We turn up, and it's like a big Royal Mail warehouse. And I'm like, I know they go to some lengths to disguise where they're filming. Like, films will actually use fake film names, so they don't get charged loads. Cause like, oh, it's a big budget film, and they don't get the press coming around. I was like, I'm pretty sure that they're not shooting inside a Royal Mail warehouse. And fortunately, we were able to Google Leavesden Studios, and it was like 15 minutes the other direction. Now, remember, you can ask questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here and get a hoarse voice. I do have a quiz that I'm going to scatter in throughout. Misha, I will also distract from her colouring in. She's already coloured in one of her hearts. And we will compare colouring in at the end. If you've finished by the end of the stream, we will compare colouring. You can post it in Discord in the colouring, what's it called? Colouring channel at the end. So, yeah, shows your progress throughout. I'm going to have a sip of water because I'm special like that. I'm keeping my water far away from my journal entry. So, Maddie, everything that I'll be telling you was written down in my journal from the time. And I tried to write down as much as I could. When we got on location, I was given this, which I have kept. This is a map of the studio complex. These days down here, they have built a new museum part of the facility for where you can go to the Wizarding World tour. Basically, all the props and sets, or a lot of them anyway, ended up in what was a grass field. But I still have this. So if ever you have the DVDs or the Blu-rays or the digital copies of the Harry Potter films, and if you put on Order of the Phoenix Disc 2, you can see a behind-the-scenes tour. Now, their map is actually made up. This is the actual map. The map that they put on the DVD is complete nonsense. But you'll see the actual insides of the studio. I didn't want to take a rip off of the video to post for part of this. Power flickers. Dementors must be circling. I hope you know your spells. What is your Patronus? What would be your Patronus be, dear?
A rat.
I knew she was going to say that. Mine would have to be a dinosaur. What would your Patronus be? Comment. Hang on. That way. Comment.
Pottermore thing gives me a salmon, but I don't want salmon. I want a rat.
Well, you do like fish.
Yeah, but I want a rat.
Misha would like a
I
rat.
will choose my own.
What kind of dinosaur? Excellent question. I would want... Have you ever seen the Disney film Dinosaur? They have a version of an iguanodon. Iguanodons actually have like clappy coconut mouths, which isn't very interesting to look at, but they're herbivores. And they were found in Britain. In fact, that was the very first dinosaur that was discovered by Western society anyway. And you can see them in the Natural History Museum. They originally thought that the name iguanodon actually comes from don, meaning the Latin or French word for tooth. And they thought that they put it on its nose when it's actually its thumb spike. And they've since corrected that problem. Hence the name. It looked like they built it to look like an iguana, which isn't actually its correct physiology. So I think that would be pretty cool. The Disney version of an iguanodon, just slightly better looking.
A dragon.
A cat, British short hair.
Ooh.
What do they look like?
I might go for a dragon too, but it's toss-up between a dragon or a rat. But I think I'd still go for a rat.
What kind of dragon? Like a teacup dragon, a Misha dragon, a Subby dragon, or like a Game of Thrones dragon, a Smaug dragon, a Pete's dragon, a Becca dragon? So many dragons to choose. Oh, hello, Lord Crispin, aka Mr. Jason, on one of your 4 accounts. Dragonflies eat mosquitoes, do they? Now I know. Okay, so essentially what you have missed, Maddie, in streams 1, 2, and probably most of 3 by the sounds of it, is it's broken down into the first half of the morning, the second half of the morning, and then the first half of the afternoon. So today's stream will be the final part of the trip, because what it was is they agreed to let me come down for a whole day with my brother-in-law driving me. This was actually after I'd started my recovery, and so I have a couple of pictures that I will call upon Misha from time to time to show you, as opposed to just staring at me and all this. But to get you going, I'm going to show you this picture. This is a picture taken by the on-set photographer, one of 3 different poses we did. And this is me, Mr. Ratcliffe himself, on the set of Diagon Alley. This is actually the small Diagon Alley set. By that I mean it didn't have the whole street. It had basically this end of the Gringotts Bank, kind of just off this way. That's the alley that Dobby and the other elf hunt down Mr. What's-his-face. I should really read the books. Misha hasn't read book 7. Can you believe that? Misha has not read book 7. Because her roommates had the Harry Potter series in the run-up to film 5 and book 7, which came out within a fortnight of each other. Too much of it. She's pre-ordered it. I have seen the Amazon box in America where it is still there. Hasn't read it. So, leaders... Oh, hang on, I missed a couple of comments here. I like to think it's coming cool and active and powerful, but it's probably a sloth. Sloths are cute and they yawn, and if you've seen Zootopia, they're just funny, and they have cool cars. Lisa, I have a painting of my Dragon Patronus. Ooh, can you share? Can you drop us a link? Where is this usually? This is usually displayed actually on my wall. I have this hanging up on my wall. It does have a kickstand in the back, but it's kind of gone floppy because it's an old frame. And it's faded a bit with colour, but fortunately they gave me 5 copies each, which I'll get to that part of the day later.
5 copies, so you have 4 others of those?
No, I have 3 of these and Matt has 2 of these. Matt is my brother-in-law who came with me because I thought it was only fair. So you may have noticed if you've not seen this picture before. Now I am 6'1", so I'm slightly tall for the average human. And you can see there that Daniel Radcliffe is actually shorter than me, and yet he is stood on the curb and I'm sort of leaning to one side slightly. Yep. Yeah, but I actually look like I could be on set, like I could be an actor. Because if you look at him and I, we're kind of dressed pretty similarly. I could have been in the background. I could have been in the background. I was not the back. I was really hoping, like it would just make my day if I could have been a background actor for a scene, but they weren't doing any crowd scenes because the Deathly Hallows Part 1, if you recall, is really just about them sort of being on the road and tenting, as some people like to say, camping. So, oh, Mandy has dropped us a link. Let's have a look. What are you sharing with us? Oh, look at those cats. They're like...
That's the short hair.
Oh, that is the short hair.
Mm-hmm.
They look...
Short hair.
The two of them look like they got poked. And the one in the bottom left just kind of looks like... Hey, what is this? Sort of thing. Although the one on the right looks pretty pruned. It looks almost like a CG cat because that's all the kind of fur that they could really do with short hair back in the day. To answer the question of what a British short hair looks like, I knew what you meant. Now I know. I did not know that that was even a breed. So this goes in my studio upstairs to the left of my monitors. So we'll put this back here. And it's casual. We just had a couple of elders from the church come round and we fed them dinner. And Misha made some Yorkshire puddings for them, very British. And we invited them upstairs to go meet the rats, which sit behind me. And then they saw this on the wall and they were like, what? Because one was American, one was Australian. To answer, that's Yoda. Impressed I am not. Meow.
Sorry.
Misha's emptying all the pencils, making a racket. So Manny, just to catch up on what I did in the morning, just to sort of catch you up. So we turn up, having eventually got to the right place. We then get into the art department. We see some of the models that they've made to decide which part of like the dungeon where the dragon's kept in Gringotts, how tall and how wide. They'd have like a white plaster model or like a, what's that packaging foam that you get?
Peanuts?
No, like the white. If you have like a computer inside and you only got a white...
Styrofoam?
Styrofoam. Big styrofoam cutouts. They had a huge, like double table-sized one of Hogwarts and the hill and the Quidditch thing all in the art department. And then I saw some like little wooden, like they had like sticks like this kind of thin. They'd make of some polystyrene. Yes, not styrofoam.
Oh.
Those are the packing peanuts.
Oh. Good thing we have a Jane.
Can't get the staff. So then we'd also seen, amongst other things, but not limited to, we'd actually then went on set, hence the picture here with Mr. Potter himself. I got to sit with the director. He was right here, and we were shooting the scene. I say we, because not that I got to call action or anything. The scene where in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, they have just had their Polyjuice potion, and you have Emma Watson being played by Helena Bonham Carter as Bellatrix, and she's like, good morning. And then you have Warwick Davis going, good morning. Basically, what the heck are you doing? And then you have Harry and Ron, and they throw the cloak over him, and then they go inside the bank. So we were shooting that little scene outside, and so we went there. After between takes, we then had that photo, and then we moved on, and we saw some other things. Then we had lunch, and I saw Sarah Jessica Parker, the actress from, amongst other things, Hocus Pocus. Kind of ironic, or conspiracy, you decide. So we went around the various stages, and they were only shooting that scene, but there were rehearsals for Ralph Fiennes, who was practicing stunt work for the battle sequence, because they were shooting parts 1 and 2 at the same time. And so Emma Watson would come and go for parts of the shooting because she was at Brown's University. And so they would film her scenes kind of like in between, like on her breaks, and also sometimes on green screen because she wasn't there, and they'd have like a stand-in, or they'd shoot over her shoulder, that sort of thing. Witches stick together. Who's the witch?
Sarah Jessica Parker.
I thought you were referring to Lita or somebody. Just saying, Lita is, a hardcore Harry Potter fan. How do we know that she's not actually a witch? We got to go outside and see some of the exterior sets that they had built, such as the courtyard, which if you look from film, say 3, where you really see the courtyard for the first time, like where Buckbeak is running off at the end and you have Harry sat down and he's like, oh, you have your mother's eyes. That scene, it's got a fountain in it, and then there's a second courtyard, and then you get to previous films, subsequent films like film 5, when you see the sacking of Professor Trelawney. The fountain's gone, so it could be a second courtyard. If you played the game, there are more than one courtyard. And you come to film 7 and 8, the courtyard is suddenly blown up in size, and they did that deliberately, the director said, because he wanted to have fights. It's a little hard to have epic scenes, especially with crew and cameras and stuntmen jumping around if you're in a courtyard that's only the size of like a house or something. So they really blew it up. I also think you underestimate my fan level too. Well, Michaela, you tell me, how big of a fan are you? If you'd have done any events, for example, cosplay, can you out-nerd Lita when it comes to decorating at Halloween? She made, if I'm not mistaken, for Christmas as well, I'm pretty sure it was Lita, the Harry Potter tune on loop, and she had glasses with a lightning bolt, if I'm not mistaken, on her tree instead of a star, and it was pretty cool. I like to say that I don't have to pretend, like I don't have to have a cosplay costume. This is actually one of the things they gave me. This is a Prisoner of Azkaban shirt. See, Azkaban. I escaped from Azkaban. So, we saw the courtyard exterior. We also saw the courtyard. If you go in from the courtyard, you come to like a little foyer square, and then you've got the Great Hall and the staircase. So we saw those are actually there's kind of in half. So the outside courtyard set, which if I illustrate here. So you have the studio complex. This is Privet Drive. Fun fact, Privet Drive does exist as a real place in England. If you watch film 1, it's kind of like a cul-de-sac, and Harry's house looks different from film 2 onwards. Like the construction is slightly different, and also the street itself is slightly different, and all the houses look identical from film 2 onwards because it's a film set on the back lot right here. But they also built in this empty space here the courtyard, but then they built, this is like a big square road, circular area. It's like a field basically where they do all the exterior a lot of exterior shooting. The bridge scene where you see Hagrid carrying the dead Harry, spoilers, across was actually up here, despite the courtyard being down here. And the courtyard had like the big staircase, like 1 flight of stairs, but the Great Hall was an interior set inside. So it's actually like in 3 pieces. By the way, this stream may spoil some of either the magic or the enthusiasm you have, because it's like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. It's not like a complete set, or it's green screen. Just saying. Ooh, let's have a look. Maddie, yeah, the house was for sale recently, wasn't it? Ooh, you know, you're probably right. I imagine that it had a great price. Nice area. Michaela, my 30th birthday was a Harry Potter party. That actually sounds kind of fun. Do you know what my 30th birthday was? My family coming around, and my dad texted me saying, sorry, I'm going to be late, and I didn't know that he was going to be there. 3-year Universal Pass holder. Ooh, can't be cheap. Met the twins. Matthew Lewis, as in Longbottom, and Tom Felton, very congenial guy. Have a McGonagall costume and full Ravenclaw student outfit. Boom! I want to see that Ravenclaw outfit because it's kind of cool, if I'm honest. Lita, you're going to have to step up here and, you know, fight your ground. Yes, knew it. Just never called him Matt. Drink. Okay. Once we'd had lunch and realised that I wasn't the one person per year that they were letting on as a visitor, like Hollywood actresses could just drop in and be like, hey, I'm a film person, give me a free tour. We also saw fun things in the art department, like the actual, like the graphics department side of the art department, where we saw like the gravestone of Dobby, like earlier version, not the final version. We saw various prints of the Daily Prophet, and Luna's newspaper. What was that called? The Quibbler?
Quibbler?
Quibbler. The Quibbler. Like with like its free spec to specs and all that kind of stuff. Like they've designed everything. You could pick up, which I'll get into in one of the later streams when I'm on set, like just the tiniest details sometimes are kind of glossed over. Stream keeps cutting out for Packer. No! Streamio Reparo. I thought it was me. Oh no. Maddie says that she's got stream problems as well. You probably didn't miss much. It's just me yapping. We haven't shown pictures yet.
OBS seems okay. No drop frames. Oh, well, 0.6. Telling you.
She's back. Lita's back. Lita, I was just basically saying, in case you missed it, that you need to up your game because Michaela seems pretty hardcore nerd. Potterhead right here. Okay. Twitch has been having problems this week. It kicked me out on all my devices. And then you were having problems on Misha's stream. In the afternoon, then other things that we did. Oh yeah, we saw like the Malfoy Manor exterior. We had... basically where we left off at the end of last stream was we had been... Misha, this is where I could use you pulling up some pictures. By the way, this is how Misha's colouring is going. She's got the wings and the hearts coloured in. Looks like it's going to be a lovely dragon. I do love blue. Misha, if you could pull up the picture, please, of the yes, that green screen one that's kind of peeking through already. Misha's going to transition so that we can see some pictures that we have lined up for you. Okay, so one of the sequences that I got to go see was basically, this is not a picture from the actual set, but it's pretty close to how the set looked. It was basically 4 walls of green, and they had Hagrid's bike, which as you can tell runs on classic tread tyres because of the profile. Modern tyres is completely different with the Psycho. In fact, you can see 2 there.
Hi, Rita.
Hey, Misha, hey. Misha really wants
shirt,
that
Lita.
t-shirt.
We need to get that shirt and be twins.
What shirt do I get?
I'll get it if you get it.
Okay, so makeup stickers. I'm just picking up. Make sure I pick up where we left off. Advanced books. Okay, so we'd come. Yes, so the big set that we'd come from was the Gringotts Bank interior. Now, in the first film, they hadn't built anything. They went into the Australian embassy and shot there. And for film 7, because they were going to blow it up, they built it on a sound stage. So one of the things that we saw coming back from Lynch and all these other sets was they were filming the sequence called The Seven Harrys, which is a great chapter in the book. However, the chase in the book is quite a bit shorter than in the film. In the film, apart from just kind of seeing flashes of lights, they kill Hedwig in a slightly different way, and spoilers. And also they take Harry and Hagrid through a tunnel. Now the tunnel was filmed in Liverpool, despite the fact that they were shooting down south and they could have gone to the Dartford tunnel. They went to Liverpool probably because it was cheaper and easier to close the Liverpool tunnels because it wasn't in the capital. Hello, Red Gamer Wolf. I'm waving at you, but you can't see me. Welcome to our Harry Potter stream. I'm talking about my experiences behind the scenes when I worked and visited on the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2. Feel free to throw in some questions if you have them. And actually, I'll throw in my first quiz question. Okay. Harry Potter himself shares his birthday, which is July 31st, with which of the following? Ed Sheeran, the singer, Michael Gambon, who plays Dumbledore, J.K. Rowling, who is the author, or Daniel Radcliffe, the actor. If I needed to tell you that, then why are you here? So which person does Harry Potter, the character, share his birthday with?
I know this question.
And yes, Red Gamer Wolf, I was at university at the time when they were shooting the Deathly Hallows, and due to having cancer, I went on a day trip as like a Make-A-Wish day, which is what I'm currently talking about, and then I went back for a week's work experience in my final semester at university. Mandy says J.K. Rowling.
So does Lita.
Michaela says Drugger. Drugger.
You guys all got it right.
You got it right because that was an easy one because I'm warming you up. Congratulations. We got 1 out of 10. We'll come back. Well, actually, we'll do a second one right now. Where is the Dursley family home in which Harry Potter grew up? This is not the real location, but the set. I thought this quiz was going to be slightly harder. Electric Avenue, Whinging Street, Blackberry Way, or Privet Drive?
Is it whinging? Is that how it's not winging?
No, Little Whinging is the town.
Oh, Little Winging is the town.
Not for real, but, you know,
Alright,
in the canon.
I see.
Yeah, I think we all know that one. Oh, come on, quiz, you're letting me down. You got it right. Number 4. Okay. And did you know that the first edition prints of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone actually were printed with her first name? But she uses her pseudonym, which is J.K. So what is her pseudonym for writing in other book forms? We know that her actual name is Jo Rowling or Joanne, but when she publishes under a pseudonym, what name does she use? Is it Joanne Kathleen? Is it George R.R. Martin, J.K. Galbraith, or Robert Galbraith? Which pseudonym does she publish other books under? You're still disappointed you didn't get to see McGonagall as a cat looking at the street sign. Well, you saw it in the film, like in the Philosopher's Stone, like you can see it in the film. It's like the first shot, basically. Oh, that's an owl, and then she's kind of going through. Robert Galbraith. I can see what you're going for. It's Michaela got it. Robert Galbraith, which was leaked to the public. Her first run on that book was like 1,000 copies, and she got turned down. And one of the editors who turned her down was, you know, human enough to come forward and be like, "Yep, I turned down J.K. Rowling," when she realised when it went public that Robert Galbraith was in fact J.K. Rowling. So that was fun. Anyway, this picture that you were looking at. So we're going around, and this is essentially how a lot of visual effects films are done. You will have a vehicle that is positioned on some sort of piston or lever. The brooms are done actually in a similar way, and you'll be able to therefore film real up close to the actors. However, things like Mission Impossible, for example, Fast and Furious feature a combination because they like to go old school, and like actually that's why Mission Impossible feels so hard when you watch it. It's because Tom Cruise, for real, drives the car, and I actually sold the production company Michelin's Pilot Supersport tyres for his BMW on one of his films. So, you know, get the good rubber. It was in the book but not in the movie. You know, Alpaca, there were some things in the movies, that were not in the movies that I thought, you know, that would have been really easy for them to do and, like, wouldn't have cost them anything, like, screen time-wise, but hey. So, we're seeing the scene filmed where they go through the tunnel. Misha, could you switch the picture, please, to... I had 2 pictures, actually, of them going through the tunnel. So they do this green screen filming, which I'll come back to in a minute, but they do some location filming first, before me and Matt, my brother-in-law, were there on the day. They had done some second unit location. I don't know which picture is where. You just scan through. Yeah, here we go, there's one. So these cars are all stunt drivers. It's at night. And what they do is they have the drivers going at about half the speed, so about 20 miles an hour. And then they have the driver going up to 40 miles an hour, who is Hagrid. It's a stunt performer, and the Harry Potter stunt performer as well, driving the wrong way. And then they speed it up double, which is basically what they did for the night bus sequence as well. And Misha, I have another picture here. If you could just switch to the... Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. That one. Good job. So you might be able to see here that the camera car is really outfitted with like multiple cameras so they can get the scene shot at the same time. You can also see that the stunt performers are definitely not the real actors, and they're wearing like a bodysuit. I actually met one of the main sort of stunt, like the walking performer for Hagrid, particularly like if you think in the Prisoner of Azkaban, he's walking through doing his lesson. That's not actually the actor. That is big, it's like 6'6" rugby player with like a huge bodysuit on and an animatronic face. Whenever he talks, though, that is the real actor. So they're shooting this scene, and if you can go back to the green screen one for us, please, love. Thank you very much. They do the close-ups with the actors, or like the dangerous stunts that just wouldn't be possible in the studio. So what we're seeing, we walked in, they had this bike on a scissor lift, not the piston that you can see there, on a scissor lift, a blue scissor lift, and when they wanted to start the take, they would pivot the bike and its two stunt doubles 180 degrees, so they were hanging upside down for the part of the scene where they go upside, there's a bus or something coming towards them, and they have to run up the side of the curved tunnel, and Hagrid is driving on the roof, kind of in a cartoon style. Old school scaffolding car rig. Yeah, but it works, you know, it does the job, you know. Makes you wonder whether they'd use a drone perhaps or something these days, or as they did for Solo, which was also shot in England, they would attach basically a wire rig, kind of like a zip line for the camera to go flying down. The only thing about that is it tends to bow in the middle. Fun fact for you. So they would hang the stunt double for Hagrid, actually, in this particular scene, was Greg Powell, who was the stunt coordinator for the series. They'd put basically a huge head on him. Now, earlier in the day, we'd gone to the creature department, and we'd seen shelves of just Hagrid's head for this very reason. The impressive thing is they would shoot the scene of basically, it's the moment when Harry, because he's caught off guard, is hanging upside down from the sidecar, and the actor, Daniel Radcliffe, was not used for that. It was a stunt guy, and they'd call action, and he would kind of let himself down, and he'd hang, and then they'd call cut, and then he would somehow, remember, he's upside down entirely, and he's been hanging upside down for, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds at least, sometimes before they call action. He then just pulls himself back up and sits inside. He's not wearing a harness. He's not wearing like any wires in this particular case. He just pulls himself up using just his arm strength and sits in as if he was just sitting normally. And I was just really impressed with just like his upper body strength to just flex himself that way. Crane cars are too much these days. £350 per day on average. I did not know that that was the cost. That's actually better than I thought. Crane cars, I imagine, in a small two-lane tunnel as well, you'd kind of run out of maneuverability. You'd need like a really wide, perhaps 4-lane tunnel or something like that. I assume then perhaps that you work in the industry, and that, unless you just really sort of nerdy and happen to look that up for us. Okay, so we see the scene, and they bring the actors up and down. Now, it comes with £1,200 with ops. Expensive. I once went to see Countdown, which is a British TV show, filmed for Channel 4 in the Channel 3 studio, ITV, and we were told that to hire the studio dry, as they call it, which means no staff, it's £100,000 a day. So, you know, things are expensive in the film industry. Me and PD are both filmmakers. That is awesome. Love to meet you. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a freelance filmmaker. Harry Potter was kind of like my first and only foray into feature films. I'd like to do corporate, social, and
oh, so
lots
Red,
of that.
is that your side job then as well? Because Red also works for Sainsbury's.
For Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
We love Sainsbury's. We have a Sainsbury's literally out our back garden. And we have like £150 worth of nectar points because we shop there a lot. In fact, the DVDs I have before you were bought from Sainsbury's. In fact, when we come back to the screen, I will show you the Sainsbury's stickers are still on it. Hashtag loyalty. Nanny? Who's Nanny?
It's like what in Japanese?
Oh, is it? How do you not spend? Oh, we spend strategically.
We wait for the double up.
The double up points. Also, who's PD? Have I met PD?
PD is his girlfriend.
Ah, well, if your girlfriend is watching, hello. If not,
is it
hello to her anyway.
Is that right? If I remember right.
You'll have to let me know what you do for your filmmaking. Yeah. Great. Okay, so during this whole filming scene, we sort of have... No, she's away for 2 weeks in Switzerland. Nice. Now, you'll appreciate this then, Red. May I call you Red? they had the previs or pre-visualization, essentially a fairly low rendered, low intensity, sort of low detail computer rendering mixed with some of the live action plate photography that you just seen a minute ago, put together so that they can see before they shoot it what shots are what, so they're not wasting time. And they had this playing on a loop. Now, bearing in mind, nobody knew that they were expanding the scene at the time. So we walk in, thank you very much, Fred. You can call me Ben, or Ben, or the real Ben. And so we had no idea that this scene was being expanded. So we're seeing basically trade secrets. Like, we could have gone out to the Sun newspaper the next morning and we're like, that's shooting! Well, actually, I think they probably knew that they were shooting in a tunnel before I knew, if I'm honest. But, a lot of the internet would probably not have known that they were doing the hanging upside down part of it, for example, because that's not in the book. If you reread the Seven Harry's Chase, the tunnel thing doesn't even exist. But it's a fun sequence. It's intense. So there is someone called The Fake Ben. Well, actually, Maddie, I have a friend who is also a filmmaker in London. He is Ginger, and he is a great friend. And he is also called Ben. And he was actually on one of these streams once, making a computer. And so I was Ben, he was Ben, and so I was the real Ben, and he was not Ben. So he's not Ben, and I am the real Ben. Just to clear that up. So I'm seeing this previs on a loop, and I'm seeing the computer versions of Harry and Hagrid, and Harry running across the bus rooftop as he's hanging, and then Hagrid comes back down again. My role tends to be director of photography or producer. I respect DPs because DPs are very important people. They help make your films look beautiful. When I can, I always like to get a DP who just knows how to work his camera, get the lighting, the focus, the lenses, because I sort of know my way around that, but I like to leave it to someone who can just be like, if you do this, it'll look beautiful. And producers are very important. Some of my best shoots have been with a producer who is just on it and has everything prepared, knows how to boss people around, shepherd them around, get them on time, and actually finish the shoot on time or early. So kudos to you. Maybe we'll have to hook up, especially if you're in England sometime. As in you are in you are in England. But there should be a comma. Sometime we'll hook up sometime. Anyways, does yeeting count? I don't know what it is. You may have to explain to me. Is that film lingo? Because most of my projects are sort of small shoots. Those pictures are cute. Okay, so let's take this picture down. Let's come back to me for a minute because they've been looking at this green screen. I think you've got the idea of this bike and the stunties hanging upside down. Say what? Okay, let me just show you what Misha's is colouring in. If you would like to, don't forget Command Colour in the stream with a U because we're English, and you will be able to download your free. This is actually one of your remotes, one of your stickers as well, but this is from the colouring book. Get it for free, print it out, colour it in, colour it digitally, we'll compare at the end. So it was really cool for me. Now, this is the other cool thing that was happening. They had the storyboards up, but seeing the animatic of something that was being expanded was really exciting. But they also had a script binder just on a table. So it was like a fairly big room, and they had the stunties and the camera team kind of basically in one half of it, and then just a couple tables and these monitors with this looping animatic. You think it'd kind of just be like on a play pause or something. Maybe we should hook up. Did I hear it wrong? Hook up as in like collaborate. That sort of way. You throw stuff, items, people across the room. Did not know that was an acronym for that sort of thing. Throw stuff, people across the room. Yeet. Is that how you sort of say it, high pitched? Because you're like, ah! Now the script binder, I was just like, there was a visual effects MacBook, probably a MacBook Pro, 13-inch silver, just labeled VFX, unattended but closed, so I probably had a password thing. But I was just looking at it going, there is a script. So I was just saying that if you think about it, up until the Deathly Hallows adaptations, all the previous films had just sort of represented the spirit of the book, but there were whole subplots that were just dropped. For example, Spew from the Goblet of Fire, or the Death Day hunt from the Chamber of Secrets, stuff like that. Whereas you get to films 7 and 8, and they pretty much verbatim adapt almost all scenes and all plot lines from the book. And so at this point, nobody really knew how much, although we knew that they were splitting the film, you hoped that it would get more, but sometimes films just kind of just throw more action at it. Now, this was an example of throwing more action at it, but it was an action scene that already existed that they were just kind of making more tense. Kind of like Fellowship of the Ring, when they have the Balrog chase, they didn't have the whole staircase falling over bit in the book, but in the film it's a great addition. So we go in and out of this green screen scissor lift, actor hanging off the top. He's like just pulling himself back up. Very impressive. See the visual effects laptop and script book, and I just want to be like, grab your hands. Ugh, okay, let's see. Moving on. Grey Palace. The filming of greasy with the bike suspended from electric. Part of the same Potter's Chase. Let's go through this one. The particular shot was the bike flips. Yep, Death Eater. Oh yeah, it was the Death Eater coming towards them, not the bus. The bus is what he'd run his feet across after he dodged the Death Eater. They did one take, moved on. They wanted to adjust things. Shooting stunt work can be very slow because you've got to be safe, but you've also got to, get it just right in order for each action beat to sync up. Let's have a look. So we moved on. So we went with the prop sort of sets guy who was taking us around. We were traveling around with Angie, who was the producer's assistant. Red, do you ever have an assistant when you're producing? Because producers are very busy people. And Angie was a very lovely lady. She had an iPhone. This was back when iPhone 4 was not out, so everyone was on the iPhone 3GS. Remember those beasts? Yeah, they were like twice as thick. But I remember at one point she was getting a call from Stuart, who was the production designer. And I was like, Stuart, I know it. Because I watched all the extra features on these DVDs, so I knew all these people's names. And yeah, that was crazy. So the prop guy at this point, though, was taking us around because the producer's assistant got busy things to do. Yeah, okay, here we go. So this is where we went to the Burrow. Now, if you remember, you had 3 assistants? You can't rely on the ones I know, really. You need to look up Angie Holt. She was great. Very nice, very reliable. Now, if you remember from book 6, there was no burning of the Burrow, but in the film they did. And so they had actually really burnt the Burrow in the backlot set. So the backlot sets had so this is sort of like the main stages here, and the canteen area, very important section, was here. Oh, hang on. And they built the Burrow basically over here, and they'd also put in Xenophilia Lovegood's lower third of his house, kind of next to it with a green screen separating the two. So they had partially rebuilt the Burrows because in the film the Weasleys had to rebuild the Burrows in order to keep living in it after the fire. I wonder if they did that with magic. They're just like reversing time with a time turner. That would have been convenient. And so we went inside the interior. The exterior set does not often, as films would have you believe, have the interior actually inside it. Privet Drive in films 2 onwards has a different interior and exterior set. You go, except for film 3, they did actually put in the what's it called when you have like a glass thing at the back of the house?
Conservatory?
A conservatory, thank you, Misha. They put a conservatory on for film 3, and they did actually shoot the sort of like the kitchen stuff there. So that is like one of the exceptions to the rule. But the Burrows is a separate interior location, and when you go on it, if you watch the DVDs, they'll say that there's not a straight line in the house. So like the floor is kind of like this. So you kind of walk, you kind of, you can kind of tell that it's not quite right. But what's weird is that then the horizon lines that you're looking at on the other side of the wall, for example, like the fireplace, if the floor's like this, then, it's like the opposite angle to, it's not, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, of course, but you feel like you're tipping one way, but you're looking at something going the other way. Oh, hang on. Time Turner was supposedly... Was it destroyed, though? Was it though? Or was that a conspiracy as well? It also seems, let's just riff for a little bit here, of all the things that a responsible head of department or head of year group house, such as McGonagall, would do, considering that she was all concerned that leaving Harry with the Dursleys was a bad idea, that her giving to Hermione, who was admittedly a great bright student, a time turner, you're giving a teenager a device that could alter time to do more homework in classes. I mean, it's a good idea and also a terrible idea. Did McGonagall put like a charm on it to stop her getting it lost, or giving it away, using it for frivolities, or like was it like always stuck to her neck? And also, do you notice that the chain magically, perhaps I shouldn't complain because it's Harry Potter, grows inside, so it's like it fits around her neck, but then suddenly it can go over Harry's neck as well. Misha's looking at me. She's like, stop moaning. They accidentally ruined the stock of time turners in the Tartan of Mystery and Order of the Phoenix. You see, that was one of the things that I thought they could have done in Order of the Phoenix, was like, you've completely changed the ending, like the whole Ron has his brain growing and shrinking is kind of weird and probably would have been an expensive effect to 3D model, but you know, there were some things that they didn't have to change. Undetectable extension charm on the chain. Oh, Mandy, good one. Perhaps it was. See, I knew that you'd all be you'd be up to this. Now the interior was built across like 3 levels, so you've got like the downstairs kind of circular room where you've got like the fireplace, the sink with and the knitting that does it itself, and the table. And then you have the staircase that Ginny comes running down. She's like, "Mummy, have you seen my sweater?" Which I think there's a great throwaway line in the Chamber of Secrets when her mum responds, and she's like, "Yes, it's on the cat." But you're not really paying attention to it because you're noticing that Ginny has noticed Harry. And she's like, and then she just kind of runs away. I just love the fact that the sweater is on the cat, like the cat is wearing it. I don't think you really see that cat in the film. Somebody correct me, but I don't recall seeing the cat. And I've just got this image of a really big sweater engulfing this poor cat, unless it's a big cat. Right, okay. So we got to go upstairs, and the landing is even worse for that kind of skew-off angle you're walking, and it really just gives you this, it helps sell the idea. And this is some of what I haven't really spoken about, is the love that the filmmakers poured into building these sets and designing the sets, and the costumes, the props, the creatures, the visual effects. Everything was designed to help tell a story. And so the idea, for example, that Hogwarts Castle, if it was made 1,000 years ago, what sort of architecture was there back 1,000 years ago? There wasn't Victorian, in England at least, there's no Victorian, no Edwardian, no Middle Age stuff. It was all castles and cathedrals back then, and mud huts, I guess, really, like a Hagrid's hut. And so they modelled Hogwarts Castle after that sort of thing. And if you come to England and you see cathedrals and castles, you're like, yes, that's why Hogwarts Castle in films 1 and 2 is a real castle with set extensions done with a model. Supposedly they were common for a time in Scotland. A werecat?
Cat-shaped hook.
Oh, cat-shaped hook. A cat-shaped hook. Well, yes, that's the thing. J.K. Rowling did finish writing the Deathly Hallows in Scotland. We walked past the hotel, actually, where she finished writing it in Edinburgh. It's like, I'm going to go write a book in a hotel room, I suppose, so that she doesn't get distracted by Facebook. Writing is actually really hard to do. If you're a writer, let me know. Misha's onto colouring in the arms. How's your colouring? Are you going to add additional shading to that, dear?
Nah.
Misha's not going to bother with shading.
Nah.
So it was very wonky inside. Basically, the whole thing about the Weasleys' residence is that it makes you believe that they built it, because Mr. Weasley loves collecting Muggle stuff, doesn't he? He has this whole shed, which you don't really get to see very much of, except for basically a deleted scene from the Deathly Hallows intro, where he's twiddling with the radios. And it makes you feel like the Weasleys, or Mr. Weasley probably particularly, kind of built it himself and just kind of kept coming up with all these ideas for like an extension of the tower going upwards. And you get inside and you're walking around and you're like, Mr. Weasley, it's probably not your strong point, architecture and engineering. That's what, IKEA has hooks shaped like dog bums. Do they? I have not seen that. I'm surprised Rachel hasn't told us about that one. So, the thing is, all these other sets that we're visiting that weren't being shot on, there's no lights. Lights are expensive and they're hot and bright. And the sets often don't actually have a roof, a ceiling to them, because that's where the light sources come in. All the fake lights are usually projected in from the top down. There's not much in the way of ambient lighting in a lot of these films. Like classic TV shows, you'll have a couple going to bed and they flick off the light. That light isn't generating most of the light in the set. It's actually like a huge light, or more than one light off to the side. And you can kind of see the shadows being cast across them when they flick the light switch, and like the moonlight gets switched on and beams across their face. You had those in your old house, what, a moonlight? Good for you. Yes, I know. So, we moved on from... what film was it? I think it was the beginning of... There's a scene basically where you can see Ron and Hermione and the rest of them sort of looking down from the inside of the burrows. And I went up the staircase and looked down, and I was like, slightly dizzy. But impressed that they actually built the house across multiple stories. They'll often split multiple stories up, as I will come to next. Such as, like I described earlier, the staircase for the grand staircase and the entrance to the Great Hall, actually separate. What's the function of a rubber duck? That's a different line in the book, isn't it? It's not a rubber duck. It was something else in the book. Who can remember what it was? It was something else quite trivial, but I think in the film they went for the comedy value of the rubber duck. And I was just like, oh, yes. Why do we have rubber ducks? And they just squeak and they spit water at you sometimes. So we left the burrows. We then went to the Great Hall. Now, Misha, could you please bring up... I have two pictures. I have a picture of a frame from the Great Hall, and then a picture of what many Oxford and Cambridge sort of university college halls look like that it was inspired from. Again, attention to detail from the filmmakers. So we're just going to switch now to seeing a desktop view. That's the room requirements, which we'll come back to later. Okay, so here is a picture of... If you look at it, you think, oh, no, it's not the Great Hall. Because basically this is what... And Misha and I, when we went to Oxford last year, we went into somewhere quite like this, didn't we, dear? Mm-hmm. So this is why the Great Hall in the book series is described in this way, because colleges of this kind of old stuffy type have these great long dining room tables, and they have pictures of people up on the wall, and big ceilings, and as you can see, sort of stone walls, and then like a teacher's table, sort of platform elevated at the end. So this is one that I found, and I've labelled it Pretend Great Hall JPEG, lols. And then if you go down there to the next photo, this is, and then just zoom in a little bit for me. So this is the scene from film 6 when Bellatrix comes in and smashes up. And you can see the similarities, obviously. There is the raised platform, there are the 4 rows of tables, the dark wood, the stone walls, or in this case there aren't really any portraits in the Great Hall. So, did you know, and this is one of the things I learned from speaking to the props sort of set guy, is that when Bellatrix, or Helena Bonham Carter, in The Half-Blood Prince, comes in at the end and they trash the set of the Great Hall, she did that 12 times. Now just think about that a moment, not just from an actor's perspective, doing something 12 times as an actress, you have to sort of reinvent what you're doing. Like, I think in the finished film, they just show you like a couple of structures, like kicking glasses, and then she uses a spell to bring down the window, which is what this frame is that you're looking at right now. It's when she shatters the window. And she's going along and just kicking it. You've got to not fall off. I mean, she's wearing, nasty shoes. But 12 takes of trashing that set. Just think you have to reset. So resetting is when you've finished filming that take, the director says cut, reset, because he wants you to do it again. Not just does Helena Bonham Carter have to walk back to the beginning, and the camera has to go back to the beginning. Some guys and girls have to then come in and clean up all the shattered glasses, or pick up the plates off the floor, rearrange the table perfectly, and that's going to take some time. And they did that 12 times for what is essentially probably 10 seconds and 3 or 4 shots in the finished film. All this love and hard work that goes in, even to dark moments like this in The Half-Blood Prince. Now, when we went in for the Deathly Hallows set, the tables were sort of stacked to one side, because if you remember the Deathly Hallows, they kind of clear it out and use it for a couple of scenes, one of which is when all the students are assembled under Snape and they have the McGonagall-Snape fight-off. And then the second scene really is the scene where they have all the injured, and it's like the triage. Now, from this angle, actually, I will describe what I saw. So we came in through this angle. To our right, if you're standing at the door, let's just say that this angle is the door, either side of the frame here. To the right was the grand staircase, sort of where it ought to have been, but it was not there, because that staircase set was on the exterior set. To our left, the windows were deliberately destroyed because of the Battle of Hogwarts that takes place in part 2, and there was rubble on the floor and some green screen behind the glass. And so they had carefully cut out that. Bearing in mind, this set had been here since film 1. The production had made sure that when they built this set for film 1, that the floor, for example, which is normally just like a concrete floor, and then it's kind of like for example, Gringotts Bank is basically a huge sticker sheet to make it look like a marble floor that's been designed and cut like very old buildings. This is real Yorkshire flagstone. I think it's Yorkshire flagstone that they used. So they kind of basically dug out some of the floor or raised the floor up or whatever and put down these stones that had been there for the whole of the 10 years that they were filming. And so those rubble and stuff on the floor. And again, all these lights, the lights that you're seeing in the finished frame, the candles are digital, and then the flames around the edge are practical because you can see the lighting that's being cast on the walls. If you look sort of over here, you can see that there is more light coming in through the windows. And there is no exterior, it's just the interior of the set. So all that lighting was not on. So we go in and it's quite dark on the day. And I have a picture of me and my brother-in-law, which, Misha, could you just take us back to me? I haven't sent this picture over to you, so I will just bring it up here. I'll raise my brightness here. So this is with a flash. Yeah, tennis. You can see like it was quite dark, and there's no head. Right. Oh, thank you. There's no headmaster's podium. There's no tables for the other teachers to sit and eat at, as there would be in other films. But you can see great details in the background, like the point scoring system. We went up to it, and this is something that you never gets a close up. You never see it working in the film, but it's there. The different point counter levels, and you go up to it. And the metal that is kind of to the left, if I just kind of show you a little bit. So you can see that there's that metal on the left there. That was engraved with great sort of, basically, I'm not going to call them hieroglyphs, but just, great fine detail. And some metal worker has taken the time to do that. I mean, it could have, I didn't touch it. It could have been plastic for all I know. Let me just bring back up Twitch again. Mess with SketchUp. See, I tried messing with SketchUp just once. I saw the video when Google released it. I was like, oh, that looks fun. And I kind of just didn't bother doing the research into how to use it properly. If you've ever done SketchUp stuff, share it in our art channel and Discord. I would be interested to see what some of your SketchUp stuff works like. I just remember that it said don't use it for architectural design because it's not that precise. But nevertheless, handy and fun. So, yeah, some of the tables were missing. I did, however... Lita's like, house points, that's so cool. My brother-in-law is just quietly nerding out. Like, he was just like, had his hands in his jeans and he was just like, the whole time. Because he was ginger, so he was like, oh, I could be like a Weasley or something. But again, they weren't doing that. Red Wolf is like, I'm going to dig it out. So I did I wanted to perch on the Gryffindor table, so I sort of like, did an awkward sort of lean so I could be like, I touched the Gryffindor table. Yeah, baby. Gryffindor. I was like, I've got to touch the Gryffindor table. So I sort of tried to position myself more or less where in most of the films the core actors tend to be sitting. Hey guys, it's 10 p.m. and I have work tomorrow. I wish I could keep watching, but I got to get out to bed. Good night, everyone. Alpaca, thank you so much for joining us. Here is Misha and her finished dragon hug. Giving you a hug good night. Thank you so much for joining us. You can watch the rest on catch up on video on demand. So, The Great Hall was great. The thing is, though, it does not look as big in person as it does in film. The reason being, when you get inside a confined space and you get up into the corner of a room, your average camera lens cannot see the left wall and the right wall without something called a fisheye lens. This is something noticeable in GoPros particularly. You get kind of like a warped image around, if I get my arms, you get a warped image kind of around the edges, and anamorphic filmmaking as well. You kind of get like, if you watch, for example, Duel of the Fates from the Phantom Menace, some of the wide shots, even in some of the visual effects shots, you'll notice that they've added a gentle warping to the edge because the nature of the round glass kind of just bends the light round. And so when you see the wide shots of the Great Hall, often from like the highest points when you can see the owls like flying in, it kind of gives the illusion of it being bigger than it really is because it doesn't match your actual perception. And so that effect means that when you turn up and you're like, oh, it's big, like it's a Great Hall, but you're like, you feel like it ought to be bigger because of that illusion that the filmmaking can give you. Lita's like, roar, roar, Gryffindor. Yeah, it was cool. Like, I'm in the Great Hall, but you know, it's a very different vibe because if you think about it, basically from the end of the Half-Blood Prince, it's a completely different tone of series. Like it's been heading down towards a more serious tone ever since, you know, I would say the Goblet of Fire really. And then suddenly, like the tables, like it's no longer a great feast. It's basically just like, it's almost like a storeroom kind of medical area, which I didn't get to see that part of it. But moving on from the Great Hall then, you know, it's a very iconic set, but it looks bigger on film. It really does look even bigger on film. And of course, they had arches for the ceiling, but there was no ceiling and there were no candles. That was all done digitally. Fun fact, there were also hidden doors. Now, I didn't get to see where all the hidden doors were, but the hidden doors would be probably for a couple of reasons. Fire escape and also just getting the amount of actors on and off. Because if you think about it, some of the scenes could just be a handful of actors depending on which way they were shooting. They might just have, they shoot all kids under the age of school age basically in England, so 16 have to have tuition on set. So during those hours where they're having kids tutored, they would have the adults shooting what they call the reverse angle. So you're only seeing, say, you know, Michael Gambon or Richard Harris as Dumbledore and the other teachers. They won't have 400 kids sat behind them doing nothing because they have limited, they can only work 4 hours a day. So think about that. On the original 2-3 films or whatever, those main kid actors were working for 4 hours a day. They had to really pack them in. So, where was I going with that? Trashing the set. Oh yeah, the hidden doors. And so they would have hidden doors to get all those kids on and off, all the set makeup, you know, costumers if they needed to adjust things, bring in and out the food for those different kind of scenes, and on all the props. And then all the crew can kind of pop in and out without having to go through the main door and sort of bottleneck everybody in. Fun fact for you, which I'll kind of get more into one of my later streams, is they use the interior of the Great Hall for another set when I went back a few months later. They'd cleared out all the tables, but they still had the walls and the glass pane at the end in, and they built a white tunnel basically and said, oh, Bits, Lita, thank you so much. Sushi is going to put those... There she is. Sushi is very happy with those heart bits. Thank you so much. Kitty stare to be fed. Oh, Kitty, how dare you? And yeah, so they had secret doors in the wall. So you are looking at a room with secret doors in it, which I think for Hogwarts is kind of fitting because if you think about it, that's what the Marauders Map was all about, was secret entrances. And you don't, that's a subplot that's basically cut from the films, are all those secret entrances that the Weasleys used. So kind of fitting that in the real Hogwarts, they had secret entrances. Okay, so moving on from the Great Hall and its foyer, which was attached to it correctly, which were very big doors. If you think about it in the film, you kind of don't really see the doors very much, but the doors are huge. Like they're really tall, and they had to build them, and they were on. They're supposed to be metal hinges. That's what hinges are made out of, but in the set, they were wooden hinges, painted to look like metal. That's some skillmanship right there. You placed 5 work in progresses in the art for you to see later. I would be very interested to see that. Lita's like, secrets! Hype! So many secrets. Let's have a look, see. Oh, now here's a filmmaking term for you. Redheads. We're not talking about ginger people. These are a type of light. So, we went into Dumbledore's office. Next, this is a bit weird. If you think about it, the interior sets were positioned in such a way that you had the Weasley's interior and the Great Hall, and then next to it, Dumbledore's office. Now, there's two parts to the office. You have, I think it's the Phoenix staircase elevator, which was in a little thing on its own. So, and this is the thing about film. You kind of assume that they would have built the elevator Phoenix and then on a platform the other half of like the actual desks part of the office. Nope, separate. So it's always fun where, for example, on The Hobbit and they go into Erebor, the exterior set and the corridor where they enter into Erebor are actually the same set. It's one through set. But in this case, it was not. It was right next to each other. So you're like, so there's the Weasleys, there's the Great Hall, and there's, you're like, this should actually be like miles apart across, Hogwarts. Now, in Dumbledore's office, it was also wasn't really lit, but they do have not just lights coming down from above like I've described, they will also have what are called redheads. They're called red because they're basically big red lights on stands, like you'd see perhaps at photographers' studios, and they do have like a red background, but they get really bright. If somebody turns it on and you look at it, you're like, aha! And really hot, so don't touch them. And this they had left in there, I think it was, I'd written down like 5 redheads. Let's have a look. Dumbledore's office, very cool, most enclosed. Oh, this thing, Dumbledore's office was pretty much like 100% enclosed set, bar the ceiling. Because if you think of something like a sitcom, you will only tend to see 3 walls of a set. You'll see the back wall, the left wall, and the right wall, but you'll never see what we call the 4th wall. That's your audience perspective. However, for Dumbledore's office, you could do a 360 turn, and it was just the set. And that was the kind of moment, just like on the Gringotts bank interior, where all the goblins were doing their business. That was a 360-degree set as well. It's that kind of moment that really stays with me, because you're like, yeah, this, like, now I'm here, as opposed to some sets where you're like, as a green screen, and there's a Harry thing, but it's a green screen, or other sets where all the props are taken out of it, like the Weasley's house. There's no knitting going on. There's no cat with a sweater running around. So it kind of feels more like an empty museum piece. But Dumbledore's office was just like magical. Really was magical. And I've written down in capitals, that was very cool. Because it was the most enclosed set. If you go back now to Leavesden Studios for the tour, they've basically cut out, I'd say, maybe like a 1/5 or a 1/4 of the wall, which was the entrance that Harry and Hagrid and all those would come through, so that the public can come in and out, because it's a museum piece now. But it was just different. So Misha, could you bring up for us, please, Dumbledore's office? I have 2 pictures. One is a wide shot from the front, and then one is a desk. Because this was a cool part of my day, and I want to share it with you. And some of the secrets, Lita, more secrets. Secrets.
Sorry.
Could you go to the bottom one first there?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Okay. One of the first things, now this particular picture is not from, I don't believe it's from Dumbledore's office. I think this is part of the Grand Stake. Oh, is it actually Dumbledore's office? Oh, this is actually Dumbledore's office, sorry, but I take that back. In the finished film, all the portraits are snoozing and are animated, but they actually hired a portrait painter and painted all of them. And if you go to the museum now, you can actually see some of these portraits lined up, and some of them are like the producers or other heads of a department who are. Lita's like, oh. This is not my picture. I got it online because I was not allowed to take pictures. The producer held on to my camera, my digital camera, because I didn't have a good enough phone. Because this was 2009, y'all. No awesome pictures on your iPhones and Samsungs. And this is what they do, is they have this green screen. Now you can see the red dots, particularly on the right-hand larger frame. These are tracking markers. When you have a camera move, you need reference points, high contrast reference points. Now you can do this quite easily at home. You just need to, if you want to replace it with a picture, and in this case a little animated movement of the old professors who are sleeping, or particularly for film 7 and 8, a sleeping Dumbledore, then you have to have tracking points. So the red dot versus the green are there for the computer to lock onto, so as the camera pans around, you can match in 3D space where the professor needs to be inserted. So they had a handful of these pictures, but interestingly, in the finished film, the other portraits are also moving. Like, I don't remember ever really seeing any static portraits in the finished film, but on set, as you can see, there are real portraits that they have. They're all real people. They're not just ones that they've gone really and bought from like a Victorian house somewhere. At least not that they've mentioned. So, Misha, if you could go to the I think it's in one of the other ones. There is a Harry and yes, okay. So we're now looking from the back of Dumbledore's office. So you can see the set right through to the back, past his desk and chair, and you can see the windows and what would appear to be the outside. That is just a light through a studio. There are no windows really in Leavesden Studios because it was a factory that made Rolls-Royce engine parts and engines for their planes. And so it's a great illusion casting that light through. This particular part of the set, if you watch the Chamber of Secrets DVD, you will find out that the set exists in 3 parts. You've got the desk area, where in film 3, for example, Lupin trains Harry on the Patronus charm. You also have this lower this lower part of the set. Natural light is irony. Yes, natural light, changing natural light is a pain. Also, getting exposure. You need a lot of filters on, or like putting things up to, because natural light is so bright. If you've ever taken just a photo on your phone looking out a window, you can't see the person that you're taking a picture of because the exposure is all wrong. HDR helps to fix some of that these days because it can expose a very bright backlight and a very dark image. Here is a scene that I really liked because this is, I believe, from the Order of the Phoenix when Harry's being explained to, and I think this possibly actually may have been the Order of the Phoenix actually, not the Order of the Phoenix, the Half-Blood Prince. Dumbledore is explaining to Harry stuff, and for films 2, 3, and 4, we never go into this part of the set, but it is there the whole time. You can barely glimpse it in the earlier films, but they built this large office, and it was they asked for more money from Warner Brothers to build this larger office. Like, this is the headmaster; he needs a big office, and so they did. Dumbledore has 2 good hands. Oh, Mandy, good spot. Yes, he does have 2 good hands. So I was right first time around. It was the Order of the Phoenix. I always like this little cozy area. They have basically this couch that Harry sat on, and they also have this chair. However, they brought the chair forward. It should be more back against the other side of the wall, so it's more equally spaced. You can kind of see that Dumbledore's a bit further forward than Harry is in frame. And it's got like a little back, where the camera is sat behind us is like a little, so to speak, window looking out. And bearing in mind he's up in a tower. On the exterior of this set, they actually did build some astronomy equipment, like actually on the outside of the set, and you can see it if you go there in person. Because if you go up above where the scene is being shot, none of the 8 films actually go up there, but you can kind of glimpse it. The most expensive prop on the whole movie never really gets seen up close. It's basically what I can only describe as a huge silver ball cut out with a seat kind of in it. They rationalised that Dumbledore was interested in astronomy, and you can see that in some of the props that kind of spin around on his tables. No, don't apologise at all. It's a very good spot. I have to remember these things. And they built this huge prop and they engraved it again. Lots of tiny engravings of star constellations and kind of like axes of grids and that sort of thing. Engraved it on this huge ball. So there was a lot of time spent on this, and it also was built on a sort of rig where the chair would be able to, like this big silver pod with a chair cut into it, would be able to move back and forth. Basically, think of like an actual an observation tower point would have the telescope move. In this case, it was more like a seat with almost like a telescope, but like a huge serious Harry Potter looking one with all of these gadgets and gizmos and lenses put onto it. And they said, if you watch The Chamber of Secrets, Christopher Columbus, the director, was like, we built this scene knowing that we could use it for a later film. However, the books, because it was a film invention, never really caught on to it. None of the books ever use that location part of the set, and none of the films go up there either. However, I got to go up there, and I got to see it up close, and I can tell you, it's really hard to find any pictures and video of it, but you might be able to online. And the set is built in a way that a lot of these sets aren't built to withstand human weight. It's kind of designed with plasterboards or paper mache, and it looks good, but you're not allowed to walk on it. And when they film, they take away like the do not enter or the do not walk on signs. Kind of like the exterior of the Order of the Phoenix is built like with raised steps over, like Linden buildings are built on 3 or 4 stories, and like there's a lower story and the steps going up to the ground floor entrance. There were signs saying, don't walk on here because it won't hold your weight. Michaela says, the shop that Gringotts ride legs into is Wiseacres, and they have a bunch of neat old-fashioned astronomy equipment. You can actually buy most of it, but it's very expensive. It is expensive. Like from the official shops, it's like you can buy the Sword of Gryffindor for like £200. And it's probably great quality, cut by a real swordsman. But you're like, £200 for a sword. So this was a great scene. Misha, I have a picture of Dumbledore's desk specifically, because this is really where this was a cool thing here. This set was very dusty when we turned up. So here's a picture, not mine, of Dumbledore's desk and chairs, as seen, elsewhere basically. Now look at that chair. That chair, you think, oh, that's kind of like a kingly chair. Let me tell you, that is without a doubt the most uncomfortable chair that I can recall sitting in. And poor actors Richard Harris and Michael Gambon sat in that thing for hours. Oof, let me tell you why it's uncomfortable. What you can't quite see is that there are cushions like squareoid, that's not a word, rectangular-oid cushions underneath for them to sit on, like 2 of them. Built, not like modern cushions. These are just kind of like hard, thick, padded seat covers, really, built underneath, but that you can't see. The arms aren't great, like you can't really rest your arms on them, and the back, it's actually really tall. When you sit in it, you sit quite low in the chair, and the back is higher than your head. You cannot, therefore, lean back. No leaning back in a chair. Just imagine that. The chair I am in goes up to my shoulders, so I can put my arms over the back of the chair. I can lean back. I can put my arms on my office chair, like on the arms of the chair, and have it flush with the desk. So that is good ergonomics for my office desk. Dumbledore's desk chair, which is modeled on like genuine, authentic chairs, if you think about it, was not ergonomically designed, and that thing was just uncomfortable. You had to sit up straight or just slouch forward. I was like, wow, this is really not a comfortable chair. Poor guys. However, the writing desk, as you can see, like there is a sloped part raised in the middle. That is known as a writing desk, writing letters, and some like it was ink stuff on the middle. Now I was allowed to sit in this chair. I was invited to sit in it. The desk, which I have a picture of that I can show you in a minute, was just covered in dust, and they had the ball there on the other side of the table. The crystal ball, so to speak, and I sort of moved some of the dust away because, again, no ceiling and all the lights above it were not in use, and so as they are building and constructing in other parts of the studio and people passing, just massive amounts of dust settle on the table. I'm sure the house elves would have been just livid with themselves. It's dust, and you can actually, if you look at a high quality version of my photos, when the flashes, you can see the dust floating through the air like some sort of horror mystery movie. It was funny. But it seems like when I went in, they were shooting what I assumed would be segments of Snape himself in Dumbledore's office. Bearing in mind, had I read the book at this point? Yes, I had. I'd read the book, and we know that from the Marauder's map, Snape could be seen pacing, I believe it was anyway, in Dumbledore's office. I believe that's what it was. Somebody may correct me. We know that Dumbledore would often pace in his office, but Snape, we don't see in the finished film as headmaster in the office. But I assume that's what they were doing, was because I was like, the set is still here. Because this is the thing about films, is once a set is done with, it's destroyed, because you need that studio space for other sets. A film like Star Wars The Last Jedi had 125 sets on, and you are shooting a movie in perhaps 2 or 3 months. So you're burning through a set in a day, maybe 2 days, and sometimes even just half a day. So you've got a finite amount of space. And this is the thing about Harry Potter, is some sets, like the Great Hall, like the boys' dormitory, Privet Drive interior, and Dumbledore's desk, his office space, they built and left up, not just in between films, because some films like Star Wars might revisit the same sets, but they'll rebuild them. Some sets for Lord of the Rings, they will shoot a year and then destroy them, and then a year later come back and rebuild them.
Oh, has the music stopped?
Has the music stopped?
Sounds like it has. Should I put it back on?
Recommence on les musiques. Misha's just going to go poke our iTunes.
I think, yeah, it was only an hour, so.
Yeah. Back to the Ministry of Magic music. Okay, so yeah. That was what I'd assumed was going to be Snape's footage inside the headmaster's office. So we went up to the upper level. So I've described the lower level, which is behind Dumbledore's desk. We then went up to the upper level. Misha, could you switch to the wide view of Dumbledore's desk, please?
Was it the small one?
Yes, if you could zoom in. It's not a very good quality picture, but it will do. So we come in and we go up the left-hand side of the staircase. As you can see, they have some very old-looking books there. If you've ever been to like the Manchester Library, for example, or other cathedral libraries, they have books that are really big, really tall, really thick, with covers that are basically falling off because they're that old, with labels on of something in Latin or something. And the props guy was like, hey, why don't you pick up a book? So I was like, I'm going to pick up a book. So I went up halfway up the staircase on the left, and I just pulled out one of these sort of big old books. Now, Dan Ratcliffe had said to me earlier, if you go into the office, you can see here that they're just phone books. Now, we don't really have phone books anymore, but we have something called Yellow Pages in many nations, if you are not familiar with it. I pulled out this particular book, which was labelled Muggles and Law, like magical law, which I thought was a really funny title, that somebody in the art department was like, we need a book that, I mean, if you think about it, Dumbledore, he's a respecter of Muggles, like he's not Voldemort, is he? And he has a book on his shelf that involves Muggles and laws regarding protect, almost like we're an endangered species, or like, we've got to respect them. So funny and yet also relevant to the character. Again, attention to details. You never see a close-up of the bookshelves, although characters do walk up and down them. Now behind us, can you see in the upper level the big silver dome that I'm on about, and peeking up to the top of the frame if I get the mouse on it? So you have here the silver astronomy chair. That is all engraved with tiny details that you never see up close. And then up here, this points out of the window and continues onto the exterior of the set. Again, part of the set that you never see, but you can see in the wide shots on the model, which is obviously a tiny replica, but you never see the actual set exterior details, again, that you never get to see. So we got to go up to this top area. However, there is actually a balcony area on this upper set. Again, they never get to use it, and you're not allowed to really walk up there because you could, but you probably ought not to, because there was signs saying, don't go up there. You can kind of see the edge of it here. This is like the floor of the balcony that goes around the circle, most of the way around, and there are pillars that kind of come in front of it. So it's kind of like the balcony has got like arches in it that you kind of have to go behind. Secret areas that you never see, but they built and designed for potential future use. Just very cool. But anyway, I pick up this book, and inside of it is an upside down Yellow Pages. Daniel Radcliffe was not kidding. So, I just found that funny. Like, all these books, they're not just spines, they are actually books. And I think in one particular scene of the movie, you can see that Dumbledore is, thumbing through it. And it makes me wonder, was he like trying to get like a pest control or a kebab or something like that? You never know. I think they probably put like a proper interior book into that particular scene. So I was invited to sit in this chair, and I sit in the chair, and it was it was well cushioned, but the back was all very straight and tall and uncomfy, and you couldn't lean back, like I've said. And I noticed going around, I was looking for the sorting hat, which would have been, from this view, in previous films, kind of up here, or depending on the film also, the Sword of Gryffindor was here, and in other films you had Fawkes kind of hovering around here, and his podium. None of that was there, kind of like in this photo. It was not there, and I was like, oh, there's no Fawkes, and there's no sorting hat, there's no Sword of Gryffindor. And Rachel, repeat titles, you know, if I recall, I don't recall seeing a repeat title. I didn't look at all of them, because there was like hundreds of books and 2 staircases. But as I went up, there were certainly volumes of books with like similar but different titles. Great attention to detail. However, I was sad that there was no sorting hat. But was that representative of the scene that they were filming? I didn't know, because we didn't know what the script was. This writing desk, I was curious to know if it would open up. And it did. And the wand that I'm holding that you have seen came from that writing desk. And I picked, because there were no papers or inkwells or anything inside, but there was this wand. And Angie, the producer's assistant, basically said, that's from Harry. Harry put that there. And that was just fab, because I now had a wand from Dumbledore. And so to me, in my head canon, this is a wand that he's confiscated off of a student. You know, maybe it's definitely not Harry's wand, because if you compare the wand to somebody else's wand, it doesn't look like anybody's of the main character's wands. And for all I know, it's a wand from the marketing department, because they had, and I'll get to it, like a whole bunch of marketing stuff. You know, it's probably one of those, but the thing is, this was on the set, and this was in Dumbledore's office. Welcome back, Michaela. Welcome back. Hope the lightning storms aren't interfering with you too much. But that wand, in my headcanon, was stolen. Detained from a student who was causing mischief, and kept in the writing desk in Dumbledore's office. So I'm just going to refresh my Twitch app on my phone. Time for some quiz questions. Okay, let me just move on. Got it right. So, what job do both of Hermione Granger's parents do? Pharmacist, dentist, journalist, or quantity surveyor? I'll say that again. What job do both of Hermione Granger's parents do? Pharmacist, dentist, journalist, or quantity surveyor? I don't even know what a quantity surveyor is. Is that someone who just goes and counts? Oh, we have... hello, E Love Art. I didn't see you come in. Welcome to the stream. Red, perhaps you know what a quantity surveyor is. But are they dentists? Let's find out. Correct. You got it right. Hermione's parents were both dentists. Next question. In which of these Edinburgh locations did J.K. Rowling not write part of the Harry Potter books? So in which of these Edinburgh locations did J.K. Rowling not write part of the Harry Potter books? The Elephant House, Nicholson's, the Balmoral Hotel, and Henderson's Salad Table. I think that's a tough one. The Elephant House, Nicholson's, the Balmoral Hotel, and Henderson's Salad Table. I know that one of those was one of them that she finished the Deathly Hallows in. Take a guess, guys. Regamer says they're the ones who go and price up a whole project. The price of an airport with what is needed. A quantity survey. Okay. Maddie says Henderson's. Elovart says I don't know. Let's find out. I actually don't know the answer to this one. I'm going to go with the Elephant House. No, that's not it. It was, in fact, Henderson's Salad Table, which was actually what I was thinking, but I didn't have the guts to go with it. One more question. How many copies of the very first edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone were printed by Bloomsbury in 1997? Fun facts that I learned this week, you can actually identify these through two typographical errors, one of which is on the back cover, which misses off the third O from Philosopher. So it says Philosopher's Stone on the back cover. And also in the letter to Harry from Hogwarts, it says that you will need a wand twice. It's like a wand and a dragon scale, this and that, and then a wand again in the very first edition. So if you have a book with that, that just sold at auction for like 30 grand or something. So how many copies of the book, of the very first edition, were published by Bloomsbury in 97? 500, 1,500, 5,000, or 10,000? So 500, 1,500, 5,000, or 10,000 copies of the very first edition. Maddie's gone straight in with 5,000. I actually think it's lower. Elifot, I think you could be right, 500 for a first edition run, especially one where they have spotted some errors, perhaps. Mythical Best, I didn't see you coming in either. Welcome, I hope you're having a great evening, if you are in the evening in your time zone, because I don't know where you're from. Any other guesses? Because I do not know the answer. But I think it's more like the 500 or 1,500. Let's go with 500. You're correct. 500 copies were only initially printed, hence the value of them today. Oh, Rach, no, so you went with triple the amount. It was not that popular. Okay, so here we are in Dumbledore's office. This is it. I know the answer. Not enough. Probably right. Okay, so I have my wand. My brother-in-law, in advance, like we talked to each other. We're like, will they give us a wand? Like, we both wanted a wand. He did not get one, and I kind of felt like I almost wanted to ask if he could get a wand. Because at the end of the day, they gave us some goodies. They're mostly given out to schools and libraries. Look at that, we got some real Potterheads with us this evening. Share your knowledge, friends. Share your knowledge. I had no clue, so I figured I'd pick something no one else did. I see what you did there. You're UK too. Well, we're in Staffordshire. We hope you're having a great evening and that your weekend is going off to a great start. Maybe you've got a barbecue planned for tomorrow. Something I'd like to do soon. Okay, so let's move on from the old office here. So my brother-in-law, who was with me, who was my quote-unquote responsible adult and who drove me down, was gutted that he didn't have a wand and very jealous that I had one. But he was very sort of, he was very good about it. Now, let me get my picture out. Misha, would you bring up the main camera for me, please? So on the 21st of October 2009 was when this trip took place. If you could hold this up towards the screen for me, please. This is the picture of me sat in Dumbledore's desk. And as you can tell, I am not slouching because you just can't slouch. And you can see just how dusty the table is and how devoid of other props it is and just how that kind of removes some of the magic because you're like, oh, he doesn't have his inkwell and his feathers and the rest of it. But if I zoom in here, you will see some of the floating dust. If you can you can see that it's the moisture in the air or the dust is caught by the camera flash. Can you see those sort of floating orbs? That is the moisture or the dust kind of floating that the flash is caught there. That just shows you the quality of the air in a working studio where there is construction and deconstruction going on throughout the day. So I was obviously very happy to be sat in a chair like that. And my brother-in-law, you like to show that picture. Also, you can see the air quality, and also just like he's trying to keep that grin as manly and as just like as happy. Like he's just like, I'm totally like just gonna quietly freak out in this chair. Yeah. So thank you very much. What exactly were you doing in / with the film? Great question. So, oh, by the way, this is the wand that Harry gave me, as Angie, the assistant producer's assistant, said. This is the wand that was in Dumbledore's writing desk. The missionaries who came out earlier this evening, they were like held it up and they were like, people can't help themselves. One of them asked me, "Is this real?" And I was like, real and what? Like, it's a real wand, but it doesn't do real magic. What did I do? Ty, hello! What I did in the film was, the trip that I'm describing today was my visit to set. For those of you who may have missed it at the beginning, this was my visit to set back in 2009. There's me with Danny Ratcliffe on the set of the Gringotts exterior / the end of Diagon Alley. They had a full Diagon Alley set that I didn't get to see. So on this occasion, I was just essentially being a tourist. I was recovering from Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a form of cancer. All clear, by the way, but it does mean that my hairline has receded a little bit from the chemotherapy. On that day, I was just visiting. Fast forward to the next year for a future stream, I'll talk about what I was actually doing on set. But in summary, 2 different roles. I had 3 days working on set with the A camera team, the B camera team, and the D camera team. And so I got to help basically move and set up the camera equipment, move the lenses. Nearly dropped the director's eyepiece, no, not the eyepiece, one of the lenses that was worth £14,000, which was more than I made in a year. And I was like, I nearly dropped it. Down some stairs, because construction scaffolding is amazing on film sets. And then I spent the remaining 2 days of that particular week in the edit bay. I say the edit bay, there was actually like 5 edit bays. You had the main editor, and then like first assistant, second assistant, and then you got further and further away from the fire exit, you got further and further down the food chain, and that was actually how it was. The main editor was closest to the fire exit and the stairwell. So,
Michaela's gone, by the way, because the lightning took out her internet.
No, gone. Okay. Nevertheless, really cool experience I got to go. And please do ask questions. Continue asking questions. Which movies? The Deathly Hallows, parts 1 and 2. I feel like a school teacher. Because they were filming both simultaneously, when I was there, they were shooting the scene from part 1, where they take the Polyjuice Potion outside Gringotts. When I returned, they were filming the scene from the Ministry of Magic, where, well, I say scene, it's kind of more like a sequence, but it kind of took place in one main set, where they are still in Polyjuice Potion form, all of them this time, not just Emma Watson. And they go in through the corridor to the courtroom where Melba Staunton's Professor Umbridge is interrogating this poor witch. And then they have the short scene, and then they have the Dementors come and chase them out into the left, that whole sequence. At the same time, they were filming the Battle of Hogwarts from film 2 in the back lot, and the boathouse scene as well. The video is gone. I can't say you're better now. I'm definitely better. Considered time. Is the video back? And yes, don't worry, I treated my cancer more like having like a cold or a broken arm, like it's kind of an annoyance or an inconvenience and sometimes a bother, but I was fine. Like, it's a very, of the cancers to get, it's very curable. And actually, here's a bit of trivia for you. It was the same cancer that Richard Harris, the original Dumbledore, did in fact die of. It was the same cancer that I had. It affects people who are kind of over 65 and 25 and under, particularly males, for no reason. They can't think of a link. There's nothing in your diet or your race or biology. It's just those age groups. So I'm good. Just my hairline.
He asks if you're in the end titles.
Oh, sorry, it's because my keyboard's in my way. No, this is a question that I wish I was. I asked, after having been on the set in future streams, in my future experience, there was short. There were people who had been a production assistant, or what they are also known as runners, for like 2 or 3 years, whose names were not on the credits. Now, if you recall like old films, like we're going back to like the 60s and 70s, and TV shows as well, would have very few credits. It would be like director, writer, head of makeup or costume, the main actors, the composer maybe, and that was about it. And where it was shot at, Shepperton Studios in London, copyright MGM. George Lucas came along in 1977 and released a small film called Star Wars. You may have heard of it. And he was the one who kind of broke the trend and put on everybody's name. It was kind of his way of thanking everyone because it was such a hard production, and there's a whole separate documentary that you could watch called How Star Wars Was Saved in the Edit. Really interesting. And he just put everybody's names on. And because of that, and especially with modern films being huge on visual effects, the Deathly Hallows, for example, had I think it was 1,800 visual effects shots. and they give them out to different companies. Like some films like Star Wars will pretty much all be done by one company, like Industrial Light and Magic, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings was pretty much all just by Weta Digital. Other films like Marvel films will be done like 12 different companies because they're trying to get the films out quicker. So they'll have, say, Industrial Light and Magic doing Iron Man stuff. They'll have Weta Digital doing, I don't know, let's say Black Panther or something. Runners, coffee fetchers. Red, I have a funny story to tell you about that, which will resurface in a later stream. I was at one point the tea runner. There was a couple of coffees in there. On the edit bays, I had to. I don't drink tea. I don't drink tea or coffee. Part of our religious health code is, we believe in certain substances are and aren't good for you. I don't drink tea, and I was asked to make tea and coffee. Now I had worked at McDonald's. McDonald's tea and coffee is a very different experience from making it yourself because you get the cup of tea and you put your tea bag in and the hot water in, put the lid on, you give it to the customer. I don't know what happens after that. I do now, but at the time that was my tea making experience. And on the edit side of things, they were like, hey, could you get everybody, all the editors and their assistants, teas and coffees? And so on my first day, I had to remember people's names. I had to remember which mug was whose, and then I had to remember who wanted what and what strength and milk. So like the main editor guy was a Chelsea fan. He had a Chelsea mug, I remember that much. And so he had a football badge on it, so that was easy to remember. But he wanted ginger tea. I'd never seen ginger before, and so I go to like the breakout area around the corner and where the fridge is and have all these mugs. And I'm like, I have to slice, I was like, ginger? I was like, this is weird. So I had to slice ginger and put that in, and so I was like, okay. And then they had an Nespresso machine, and like so-and-so wanted a number 6, so-and-so wanted a number 7, and I was like, and then I was like, this was actually when I had to fathom out tea bags. I was like, well, I know, but I can do the putting the tea bag in and putting the water in and even putting some milk in. I was like, because McDonald's tea bags come on a pull string. Most tea bags, like conventionally from the shops, don't have drawstrings on them. So I was like, there's just a tea bag in this cup of tea. Like, what do I do with it? Do I like? I've sort of seen it from like you have to take it out. Some people want it left in if they want a strong brew. But I was like, okay, I need to get it. I have to scoop it out. Like, do I press it? How long do I leave it in for? I was like having a proper meltdown. I was like, I'm gonna like this is like a really simple thing, like a non-event for tea drinkers. And like, here's me having a meltdown on the edit suites of Harry Potter because I don't know how to make a cup of tea. Yes, I was making potions. I was in real trouble. And I managed to get, nobody told me I got it wrong. I got everybody's cappuccinos and frappuccinos, well not frappuccinos, Nespresso machines right. And I brought it to this one lady whose name I thought it was either Becky or Becca. And I couldn't remember. And I went with the one that I thought it was. And I was like, I was making the effort to try and use their names, like they didn't know me and I was only there for a couple of days, and I was like, here you go, Becca, and she's like, it's Becky, and I was just like, I could feel the disappointment. I was like, I did so well until now.
I think he talks more than I do. I've got more to say, Tiny.
Because it was emotional, okay, like I was really invested in this stressful task and carrying all these mugs. They didn't give me a tray. So yes, coffee runners. On set though, I didn't have to bring anybody any drinks. Although I did offer, because they had like a tank of hot water and some Aero hot chocolate that you could make. Surprisingly, no tea and coffee. And so I did occasionally bring people some hot chocolate because I was friends. Yeah, no trays.
Nearly as much. I really think he does more.
The thing is that I know that there's a lot of Potterheads who will never have the opportunity to go to set, and so I'm just trying to offload as much information so that you can picture what the experience would have been like. Now, these sets weren't particularly, going back to really the crux of it being on sets and walking around, these weren't heated buildings particularly. So I'd be wearing not just a shirt, but I'd be wearing a jumper. If you see the pictures, I'm wearing a jumper and also a coat, although the coat's not done up. I've helped make coffee once before. Well, I appreciate that, Tanya. I'm very grateful. I'm not such a nearly as practiced streamer as Misha, and I don't know about you, Red, but I find I am much better behind the camera or editing than I am in front of the camera. You give me a script, even my own script that I've written myself, and A, I just fumble around with it, and then B, I can't act it very well. Whereas my dad, great, he takes great direction. It takes a little bit of effort to remember his lines. So I appreciate that you're all working with me. Let's spice it up real quick with another quiz question. Let's see, which of these books appears on the reading list for students? Oh, sorry, the Reading. Reading is a place in England. Which of these books appears on the reading list for students at Hogwarts? Perpetual Change by Moby Grape, Intermediate Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch, The Return of the Giant Hogwart by Hermiston Bruce, or Lark's Tongues in Aspic, a cookery primer by Emilist Davjak. I'll repeat those, perhaps just say A, B, C, or D. Which of these books is on the reading list for Hogwarts students? Perpetual Change by Moby Grape, Intermediate Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch, The Return of the Giant Hogwart by Hermiston Bruce, or Lark's Tongues in Aspic, a cookery primer by Emilist Davjak. I don't know. I have no memory of any of those.
I think Rachel's right, yeah.
Oh, well, we have a Switch book and we have Intermediate
They're
Transfiguration.
the same one, aren't they?
Mythic goes with B. So B was the Intermediate Transfiguration. We'll go with that one. And you got it right. It was Intermediate Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch.
See?
Great job. We'll have another question. Scientists have given some newly identified species names inspired by the world of Harry Potter. Which of the following is real? The dinosaur Hagraphus hogwartsia, the rabbit Potalagus beatrix, the crab Harryplax severus, or all of the above. So the dinosaur Hagraphus hogwartsia, the rabbit Potalagus beatrix, or the crab Harryplax severus, or all of the above. We've got all of the above from Eel of Art. Tiny's going for the crab, Harryplax severus. Any others? Oh, Lita, sorry, you went for B, which was the rabbit. And Mythic's going for all of the above. I think it's all of the above. Oh, no, it's not all of the above. It's, in fact, the crab, Harryplax severus. I'm disappointed because I wanted it to be the dinosaur. Right, we'll save the last two for later. Okay, so getting back to the sets. We're on to this last section here. Okay, so the last full set that we had, that we got to see, was the Malfoy Manor interior. Now, I did discuss this a little bit in a previous stream, I believe. The Malfoy Manor interior can partially be seen in the museum tour. If you remember, the Malfoy Manor interior, actually, there's two setups. There's the scene at the beginning of the Deathly Hallows Part 1, where you have the long table scene, which was actually cut down. I discovered this from talking to one of the editors that I was working with, is he did 2 or 3 edits himself, just kind of for fun, not really, because he wasn't the main editor. And he had a scene where he'd cut like 30 seconds out of it, and then he had another version where he'd cut 2 or 3 minutes out of it. That's a lot to cut out of a scene. And I think I can tell where the edit point is. At the beginning of the scene, you see Severus walk in, and Voldemort's like, "Severus, we saved you a seat." And then he sits down, and then it cuts to the audio of somebody talking about plans, but you can't see who's talking. Now, when they do that, that's usually to hide the edit, because that would have been probably halfway through what I would assume would have been the whole of that plan. And you just see like people sitting, listening, and then Snape's like, "It's going to happen tonight," or whenever it is that he actually says. Makes you wonder what the rest of the scene contained. Probably, in my opinion, plot that wasn't necessarily relevant, but in the book would have been, slightly more extended scene. So secrets. It's not on the DVD. There is no extended version released from films 3 to 8, I believe. It's just the first couple.
Lita's hype emote. Secrets.
Secrets. Did I miss it?
No, I'm just saying it.
Oh. So yes, that scene was trimmed down in the final cut. Interesting to know. So in the creature department from a previous stream, you may remember that we saw the professor of Muggle studies, I believe, who in that scene in the film is floating above the table. Heather, secrets! Leader's like, hype! Now, when we went on, again, there was no actors, but it was a 360-degree set. The walls, were, if you were to knock on them, they weren't particularly solid. It wasn't a cheap set like where it would wobble, though. But again, it's based on a real house that Misha and I have been to, like a manor house in Derbyshire. What was that called? Something house. I'm really helpful with words like that. By the way, this is Misha's finished dragon. I did say, you're going to include some shading? It's very lovely, though. It kind of looks like your real thing.
I think.
Go figure.
I can't remember. I'll have to think.
In any case, it's hello. Hello, Jane. It's based on a real house that you can go see as part of National Trust membership. And it's a great house. And it genuinely looks quite similar. The entry hall of the real house looks similar to the one that inspired it. And here's the thing. Windows back in the day, like that day when that house would have been constructed for real, was super expensive. And Malfoy Manors have huge windows just like the set, just like the actual house, which was a show of wealth. If you had windows and lots of them and big ones, were you in the money? Because glass was expensive. And ironically, the Malfoy Manor is a kind of dark, murky place. Go figure, you know. Use of lighting. So again, the attention to detail that they chose to base it off of this actual manor house and just kind of change the exterior sort of a little bit. Very clever. The exterior set itself, like they could have gone and shot at this actual house and just CG'd on or put models of these sort of apexes on the sort of like the main front. They built the actual front exterior on the grass, which I will get into in another stream because I put my foot in it, literally, and walked away, pretending I hadn't done anything. So the Malfoy Manor scene, you have the table scene, but then you also have like the scene where Hermione's like being held at wand point. Is that how you'd say it? Held at one point? Or did she have a knife at that point? Did she have a knife? She has a knife that she throws at Dobby, obviously. Now, we're told that when they shot the scene with the table, what I'm going to call the table scene, you can see in one end of the set there is actually an organ that they've put in, and Helena Bonham Carter wanted to be playing the organ, which would have suited a character quite well, but if you think about it, probably wouldn't have meshed with the vibe of the scene, which was all kind of somber and serious. In my mind, though, and in Helena's mind, she's obviously thought about this. When she's arrived at the Malfoy's house, she's walked in and gone, "Hello, my lovelies! I hate you all!" Ah.
But I can't remember what it's called.
What would you like to show stream peeps? Grey lighting is best lighting. It brings out a lot of detail that you can play with digitally. The window tax. So I did forget the window tax.
So here's the actual house they based it off of.
You can see the similarities. They actually used the side view of this house, which you can kind of see it's got like sticky outy bits to the side. It's kind of like it's got ins and outs. They use the side as the inspiration. There should be a picture from the side in the photo stream, like with the hedgerows.
That's what I was looking for.
And again, they put in fake hedges, or brought in real hedges.
That one?
Yes.
This one.
So, you should turn it off. There you go.
Why is it?
Turn up your.
It is. It's completely.
I think it's just the reflection.
Yeah, I think it's just a reflection. There we go.
So it's very narrow, and then the Malfoy version, they kind of just triplicated the width of it.
Oh, this way.
And they've added apex roofs onto each of the parapets, basically. But you can see that's where they had the inspiration. Falsely, in a book that I have, it says that they went there to film. They did not go there to film. I walked on the set and ruined the set that they shot on both the interior and the exterior. I only ruined the outdoor set.
Is that the inside?
Yes. Would you like to show it? So we have here a perspective picture, panorama of the interior of the actual house. You can see the big long table. You can see what is a slightly less intimidating approach, but you can see that there's a balcony at the end, just like in the film set version. and some tapestries on the wall, which in the set are replaced more with windows and some paneling. So again, attention to detail, historical accuracy for the type of period that the Malfoys, obviously, they've been living in this house, living in that pomp and ceremony for generations, just really adds to that level of character that you just kind of hints at. And if you know that, you kind of think, yeah, the Malfoys would have been living in this house for centuries, and they would have built it up, and they had this richness, and hence why Malfoy's dad is like, quite concerned. He's got this legacy behind him, and Draco himself, he has this legacy, but he's kind of like, he's the weak point, or is he, in the chain. And if you receive guests in olden days into your home, like, it was a big thing. And imagine having Voldemort and his entourage of Death Eaters come into the house. No wonder, like, Draco's dad's just like, other than the fact that he dropped the prophecy.
Heather, look at all these drawers.
Oh yeah, this is a real sort of like archive room from this house.
All these drawers.
Now, this actually reminds me, when you go to Lucid Studios' sort of museum side, they have a room that looks like Ollivander's at the end of your tour, with people's names on who worked on the production. This goes back to the question about, was my name on the credits? No, it wasn't. But there was an empty one box with no writing on it. I just felt like I should get a pen and inscribe my name on it. But then there were other people who had worked on the film for years who did not have their names in it. But they also had a binder of people who worked on it. So people were like, oh, I knew such and such on the movie. Whereas their one box, the person could be like, yep, they're over there. Sort of thing.
I'll see if I can find the name of this place. It's National Trust. Yeah, National Trust.
National Trust. Now, one of the other rooms that we went on, we...
Hardwick Hall.
Hardwick
Thank
Hall.
You, Elson.
Yeah, listen, check
There
you
we
out.
go.
Hardwick Hall. I knew it started with an H.
Yeah.
So, other things that we did just to wrap up.
It's Bess Hardwick. Remember, she's the
Bess
one.
Hardwick. Oh yeah, the Lady Hardwick.
Yep.
Here we go. Okay, so we then ended up, we saw this room, and it actually, the room, the Malfoy Manor room looked, like when you imagine something in a book and then you see the film or the TV show and you're just like, yeah, they don't look like I imagined them. Like, I imagined them taller or shorter, or Ivana Lynch she didn't have an Irish accent in the books, stuff like that. But this was like, wow, this really kind of almost looks like exactly like it did in my head. It was just bigger than I'd imagined in my head. So I was just like, wow, it's really satisfying when what you picture is almost verbatim what they produce. You're just like, yes, that's cool. Thank you for the follow. No, I can't see from here. Naughty and Film. Thank you for watching. Hope you're having a good time. So, there was no hanging professor actress for the whole week. She was only used when needed. They had a fully remote Wi-Fi 4G animatronic lady that they built to scale in the creature shop, and was just kind of stiffly leaning up against a chair like this, with sort of dried blood and dirt and all that kind of on her face, which they could then sort of float in the backgrounds of shots. So when you're seeing the background of shots from that scene and you can see the professor sort of squirming, that's an animatronic. When you see her talking, which isn't actually very much at all, which is a poignant scene because she's like, Severus, we're friends, and he has to let her die. That's a tough scene for Severus the character. So she wasn't there, but we got to sort of go around and have a look. And again, that Do Not Walk was on the pretend marble staircase sort of set. Now, in the film, there's the two sets that you see in Malfoy. You see in Malfoy Manor, I mean. You've got the table scene and the dungeon and the staircase kind of connecting those two. The staircase is a separate set. It's not connected. It's not like you go out of the table room area and the staircase is there like you would expect to be in a real house. Nope, it's a separate area. And the bottom of the staircase is on the ground floor of the studio, and it kind of goes up like that. And there's basically a sign saying in the table room set where the staircase goes down, it's like a little barrier, and it says, "Don't walk here because you'll fall through it." So you got to watch out on these film sets. So after we'd seen that, we went back to the green screen visual effects place with the bike stunt chase going on. But then this was pretty cool. Once we'd done that, we went into the ever so cluttered room of requirements. If you remember from, I have a picture, dear, of the room of requirements. Could you bring it up for me, please?
Yep.
It's this one. Remember the room of requirements, and this is, if Alpaca was here, she'd agree with me.
Huh?
Yep. So in the book, they have books appear that talk about defense against the dark arts, because that was the thing in the film and the book, is Professor Umbridge has given them these really dumb basic versions of the books for basic defense spells or whatever, and Hermione's like, I hate this. And then in the book, real books, like proper good books, appear, and Hermione's face just like, oh, this is amazing. But they don't do that in the film. They don't. It would be nothing to show like a little bookcase with some good books, or Hermione grabbing one as part of one of the scenes when Harry's going around lecturing people. Like, that would have been easy to do. I'm like, they could have done that. That wouldn't have been any skin off of their nose. Now, why am I showing you this? They had another version of this for films 7 and 8. Actually, this would have been film 8, actually, when Harry goes back to Hogwarts. And you recall that the room of requirements is basically just like the janitor's closet of Hogwarts. It's just full of stuff, like piled high. We're talking like 90 chairs, wooden chairs stacked on top of each other, tables and tables and tables. And the production were actually using the room of requirements in two ways. They would actually use, if you remember from previous streams, they had corridors and warehouses full of old props. We're talking the night bus or the boat from the Half-Blood Prince in the Voldemort lair. We're talking like Christmas stuff, so not just props, but then they had trains, and I'm talking like the trains interiors. And this is, again, another example of interior and exterior sets not being in the same unified location. For the films, they would put a special carriage together and rig like 8 cameras up, so you'd had them shooting both up, down, left and right perspectives from over, when you'd cut to Harry on one side of the cabin to Ron on the other side, so that you could have the coverage, and the exteriors would match up both on one side of the train and the other side of the train. But then they'd actually shoot the coach, as it's called, on interior, and they had built from film 6 like what I'm going to call an open coach, where it's kind of almost like just like a bus, and everyone can kind of see everybody else's. But then you have what I'm going to call the cabin class, like a first class approach to trains, where Ron, Harry, and Hermione tend to sit, which is like in their individual cabin, like when they meet Professor Lupin. So they had these 2 train interiors. So the exterior of the train, you could tell it was a train coach, but there was no exterior paneling on it. There were no wheels. There was no track. It was just this long, rectangular train interior set in the room of requirements, 2 of them. And you're just like, that's there. Again, sets being built around other sets was a thing. Not only that, towards one part, as we were walking, they're like, so not only were we throwing in like old props, like you could see, and you can see this in the finished film, you can see like the chessboard pieces from the Philosopher's Stone. I think it's the king or the queen you can see in one particular shot. And so they had saved all these props, and then they were like, okay, now we can reuse them, because sure, Dumbledore would have had to put those chess pieces back somewhere after they weren't protecting the stone anymore. So they had that there. And they also had unused concepts. So if you imagine this kind of space, but take off all the walls, replace it with some green screen, and also higher, because if you think about it, in the Deathly Hallows, the room of requirements is suddenly much, much taller, because they're flying around in it, and they have these huge piles of chairs and desks that Malfoy's hanging off of. So again, changing physics is a thing throughout the years at Hogwarts. Things just move around. They also had these unused concepts like troll armor. At one point during the battle, they're like, well, trolls turn up and we're going to give them armor. In the finished film, trolls turn up with no armor. But they had gone through a whole design phase of illustrating and then manufacturing troll armor. And if you go to the museum, you can actually see it like in a cage. It's there. But they don't say, hey, look, this is an unused concept from the film. So, secrets. So there was troll armor, which I think you can see in the finished film. And they were literally thousands of props just jammed in. Basically some some set dressers and decorators which have been like, right, we're going to empty the warehouse, or all these, the containers that you have on lorries or Arctic lorries. Like they have what they call on the map, Container City. I kid you not, I am looking at it right now. The words Container City, containing even more. The Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, that's what it should have been called. It's like the Room of Secrets. Secrets. So previous films and unused stuff all in one place. That was really cool. But then as you're walking around the room requirements, Misha, could you then change me to the other app, please? And close that picture. We're going to go to the picture of Harry and the gang running through the Ministry of Magic.
Other app.
Yes, that app. There. Go with one of these photos. Next. That's probably the first photo. Not my luck. Nope.
So we're done with this one then?
Yeah, we're done with that one.
Okay.
My lovely assistant is going to bring up the right photo for you.
It's none of these.
I don't know, scroll.
Nope. So we're done with these.
Yeah, we're done with that one. There it is.
There it is.
Typical. Okay, so the Ministry of Magic set was the biggest interior set that they built. This particular angle does not show the full length of it. It's kind of like an L shape, actually. And you go around the Room of Requirements set, in film 7 at least, anyway, film 8. And all these props and towers and things, and you really shouldn't touch them because you'll knock them over, although they are like hammered and glued together and whatever. And then all of a sudden they were building right next to it with no walls or separations, this very set. And it was more or less close to being finished. So it had a green screen wall at one end, but they had, which was slightly odd in it, they had like these JCB diggers and forklift trucks and scissor lifts inside. I was like, because that's not weird, like seeing modern earth moving and construction equipment inside the Ministry of Magic. Like, what? And it's huge. Like, if you think about it, like it's a big empty set, but they have to build the floor, and the floor has to be good enough to hold the weight of the cameras and 150 extras. And but they have to build like these walls, and it's a tall one. It was like right up to the ceiling. And so they're running towards us, the camera on the right. The set continued right for the fountain, which in a previous stream I discussed, I had seen they replaced the fountain from the Order of the Phoenix with the statue of, what is it, Magic is Might or something like that. And you can see this wizard on top of a platform crushing muggles who are bearing it up with their shoulders underneath. Do you remember that? Well, I met the man who was sculpting that statue, and it took him months. Magic is Might. There we go. Thank you, Maddie. So I'm walking through, and I'm just like, and there's the Ministry of Magic, So that was crazy. So at this point, the tour was basically at an end, and I said I had a prompting that I should ask for a job. Now, bearing in mind, at the time, I was a second-year university student. At this point now, I was a third-year university student. And in between my first and second years, I'd worked on my first documentary project, my own sort of passion project. I'd done a couple of music videos, or I'd been working on like second unit for picking up on a small feature, independent feature film. And I was like, hey, can I'd been specifically planning all day to build to this point. And so Angie, the assistant producer, had been leading us around all these sets, or the art department, things that they wouldn't normally show members of the family that they bring in because kids wouldn't be interested in that. So I'd seen like the schedule when I sat down with the director. I'd seen like the stunt work, the green screen, because I was like, I'm a film student, I'm interested in this stuff. That's an animatic, that's previs, that's a script. I know this stuff, like it's cool, I'm excited by it. And so I'd been dropping in kind of my knowledge throughout the day and also my recognition of these things. And I was like, can I have a job, please, basically? And she's like, well, we're full till Christmas. Bearing in mind, this was October. We're full till Christmas, and they were shooting back-to-back films 7 and 8. And she's like, come back to me in the new year, and we might have something. Misha, if you can put us back to the webcam, please.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. Okay, now we get on to the good stuff. We exchanged contact information, and she's going to pop up to what they called their own marketing room of requirement, because it was just like piled high full of stuff. It would have been kind of interesting to see. But she gave me a Harry Potter themed kind of tote bag, but like a big plastic gift bag, basically, full of stuff. And she asked me, do you have anything like you want, basically, like after she brought us back some stuff. And I was trying to toe the line between being excitedly greedy and just greedy. And so I kind of towed the line of being polite and being like, well, this is great, thank you. Like, I was genuinely expecting to come away with nothing but memories and maybe a wand. So I had come back with memories, and also they told me no photos at all, no photos, but they had allowed us to take strategic photos, some of which I've shown you, and then this picture of Daniel Radcliffe and a few others on set. They come back and they're like, we're going to give you, you've now not just got memories, but you have the photos that you've taken that you're not allowed to share until and after the films come out. So I couldn't tell anybody. Then we have these photos, and then we've got this gift bag for you. So I was already feeling like I was coming back with way more than I was expecting. But then other people were like, you should have asked for more. You should have taken it all. And I'm like, yeah, I wanted a job. I didn't want to be like, can I also have like signed copies of every book or like all the goodies? Lisa, what would you have done? What? Tell me, guys, what would you have done? Would you have said, sure, like, whatever? Like, if you have some, like, would you play like the innocent kind of not bothered card? Or would you be like, oh, yes, please, that would be so good. Yes, please. Or would you be like, yes, sure, take me to the room. What would you have done? Would you have stolen the keys off of her? So, the contents, some of which I brought down with me, there are other things I've not. So I was given, for example, this lovely gift box set of House's symbols as bookmarks. They're actually kind of heavy. I used this when we had our Hobbit book club, and it would like kind of leave a bit of an imprint on the page and bend the page if I kind of angled it wrong. Lisa, all the things! Of course. So they gave me that. They gave me some like Harry Potter like sweets or bubblegum type things, like in a little container. They gave me some Goblet of Fire sticker packs. I actually gave some of these things away. I'd have tried to be modest. However, I'd love to have had Ivana Lynch's autograph. And because they were shooting part one, if you think about it, most of the other actors from the previous films don't really show up because they're not at Hogwarts for part one. And for part two, they only kind of reappear sort of like halfway through to the end. However, I did have this. Now, this rarely ever sees the light of day, but I wanted to bring it out for you guys because this is special. Can you guess what this is? I have to open this at the right end. So they'd given me the wand, they'd given me this Azkaban shirt, they'd given me some treats, some like a box. Allison's like, it's a signed poster.
You be correct.
Here it is, guys. Nope. Yes, that's part of it. This is one of the things they gave me. Undesirable number 1. Except this is actually the Blu-ray poster. Blu-ray DVD, 2nd of December. So that's not from the movie set because at the time these were only existing. But if you think about it, actually, the reason I kept that one is because it's actually in the background of this picture. There it is, you can see it. So it's just like the bottom's been changed. Let me just put that down there for a second. The pièce de résistance, though, is this. Misha, I'm probably going to need your assistance.
Make sure
If you could hold the bottom. Because obviously they hadn't done the Deathly Hallows posters at that point, I have the Half-Blood Prince poster. However, if we bring it closer to the screen here, you can see here some
this one
signatures.
says, to Ben, love Emma Watson. To Ben, love Rupert Grint. To Ben, love Daniel Radcliffe.
Now, I did not know about this, so in advance of the shoot, because Emma Watson wasn't there, they must have arranged this. So I felt incredibly like, wow, they have got me a poster signed by all three of them. What I found funny, though, is that I figured that Emma Watson must have signed it first.
Because then everyone else followed.
Because everyone else follows
with love.
going down vertically. But they, as Misha says, they use the words love. Now, I don't think Rupert and Dan would write love. They just kind of saw to Ben, love whoever. And then there was like, to Ben, love me. To Ben, love me. And I'm just like, sure. So this comes out like once every 5 years. So this is the thing. Emma Watson, I don't know when she was last there in the studio. Could have just been a day off, but I was there on a weekday. And so somebody, probably Angie, took the time to be like, hey, Emma, this cancerous guy is going to come down. Could you sign this poster? And she did. So she knows about me, even though she has no idea who I am or what I look like. And then I did meet Dan, and I spoke with him. I met Rupert, like, I saw him on the day, but I didn't meet Rupert until when I went back. And I'll discuss what I did there because something quite funny happened. And I sort of pretended to be sort of somebody that I sort of wasn't, but I was. I did something for my sister because I loved her, because she freaked out. So I'm coming away with this bag full of goodies, and I'm just like, thank you very much, and hopefully I'm going to get a job out of it, which is how I got into my work experience. So just to wrap up then, they came back then with these, the set photographer, I assumed, had just been taking pictures more for their purposes, not to give me. And they come back with like a brown envelope with 5 copies of each. Not just one. Like, they could just been like, we'll email it to you. But like, it's like a proper border, and it's like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, copyright 2009, Warner Brothers Entertainment, all rights reserved, Harry Potter publishing rights, copyright, you know. So it's like the full thing, and it's got the photographer's credit, which is, I believe, Finnish, because it's Jap Budenjik. Him. And he had a camera that was in like basically like a case that was like completely soundproof. So like he'd push a button and you couldn't hear anything. So I'm walking with those, and so I gave 2 of each of these photos to my brother-in-law, and for years we had to keep it a secret. And he especially, because we were like, you can't talk about this. You can't put it on Facebook that you've been, because if you imagine that, if I, for example, right now, if today was the day that I'd been and I was like live on, well, Facebook wasn't as popular back then, and Twitch wasn't a thing, but imagine if I announced to the world via whatever means, hey guys, I just went to Leaveson Studios today on a tour. Hundreds, if not thousands of people would descend on Leaveson Studios at the security gate going, we want in, this guy got in, I'd get in trouble. Genuinely, honestly, the producer's assistant was like, we have people at Warner Brothers who sit on the internet all day chasing the Deathly Hallows news and rumors and like get it taken down or you know, stopping things getting out before they should. And so they, I was like, yep, can't put that on Facebook. And I told my lecturer, my head of year, because I was going to miss, you know, university. I told my mum because I was like, yeah, I'm going to be gone for a day, 2 days, because we slept over at a hotel. And then basically they gave us all these pictures, and I was like, that's just really like a lovely gift. And this was the thing. If you watch other behind-the-scenes things like James Cameron on The Abyss, for example, he was running behind schedule, and you know, things were going wrong. They had to change things. And when you go behind schedule, it's costly. Shooting the movie, like actually the process of shooting the movie, is very expensive because you have lots of people stood around doing not much, and they cost you. Every day that you get an actor back for an extra day, it costs you. And you're hiring a facility, you're hiring equipment. Film studios don't tend to own their cameras or their tracks. The gaffers and the DPs, the directors of photography, will choose to hire it from this company, or if they have it themselves, they'll bring it in. And so it's very costly. And so the tension on the set is usually quite palpable. But the producer, if you think about it, you are the producer of Harry Potter, and you're like, yep, we're making the 7th and 8th film, we're splitting it in 2, and we're going to make like $1 billion. you could think of it that way, and he's just like, we don't need to rush. And they actually did go over about a week on shooting these 2 films back to back, which is actually not bad, considering the amount of stuff they had to go through. They shot for basically 160 days or 150 days of actual shoot days. So that was a long time. The ambience on set was really one of a relaxed, we're kind of working, kind of just like an office, you know, like we're working, we're having a good, relaxed enough time. The first assistant director was the guy who just kind of seemed out of place, and he actually went on to assistant produce The Last Jedi. And I sat in his chair at one point because I was invited to, and he just kind of looked at me like, he didn't do that, but like that was kind of like the vibe I was getting. It's like, you're in my chair. And he just relaxed. And so getting all these extra gifts, I was just like, this really is like a friendly environment. They've been there, like films are usually in and out in a month, 2 months, 3 months, depending on, you know, the size of the production and if they have an art department there beforehand and stuff like that. Star Wars The Phantom Menace had shot there, for example, and they were there for 18 months because they hired out the studio and kept the sets for reshoots. So that's a very long time in filmmaking terms. But these guys were there for like a decade. That's me if PD makes me the first assistant. And I was just like, wow, just like this is not the kind of film set experience that I was expecting. Like, sure, they were busy and they were, like at certain points the director would have to sort of leave me and go talk to so-and-so and make a decision on like what they're going to do next. And the first assistant director was always like, okay, like guys, we're now going to move this camera, like he's raising his voice. He's like, we're going to move the camera from here to here. Like we need the track in and we need this dolly out. And Helena, you're done. You can go back to your trailer. And she had a white MacBook, for example, and she got a golf cart taking her back because it's a big facility. Like it'll take you a while to walk through it. And most like the directors and producers and some of the other department heads had bikes, like bicycles. But the actors, they got ferried around on golf carts. So at the end of the day, we're given these gifts, and I have my camera back. It's got like 5 photos that they took strategically, and I have all these gifts. And this day has just happened. I've turned up. It almost all went wrong because I couldn't get there. Remember, we went to the PO box address, and we were like, ah. You know, I did not have an iPhone. It was very fortunate that my brother-in-law had an iPhone because it meant that we could look up where Leavesden Studios was and like kind of guess on the map where it was. Otherwise, we would have had to like try and call the charity. Well, how do you call the charity? Like you have the number, but they've obviously given you the wrong address. So it nearly went all very wrong. So we've got over that drama. We turn up and the producer assistant's very nice. She walks us around, shows us all this film stuff that really interests me as a filmmaker, but as a Potterhead, they're like, oh, cool, like this is where the dragon's going to be in Gringotts, which was something that was teased in book 1. You're like, Harry thought he could hear a dragon roar, and you're like, oh, finally we're going to see that, and that's what the set's going to look like. And here's this like extended chase tunnel scene, which wasn't in the book, and oh, that's cool. And like this is Dumbledore's office, and like here's the bigger courtyard set, and it's kind of like destroyed, and the Great Hall, and like the windows are kind of smashed out. You're like, oh my goodness, like. And we got to sit in Dumbledore's chair, and like just all this kind of stuff. And like and it's like, here's some gifts and a wand, and no wand for you. And then it's like, thank you very much. Maybe a job, and I'll have your security passes back. And it's just like, how'd you digest that? I'll tell you how we digested it. We went and had a Krispy Kreme. Yes, we did. We had a Krispy Kreme all the way back, and. You know, I was tired, you know, long day, but heck, I'd have that day again. And just to kind of sum up my feeling, like my next journal entry starts like this. How to follow up. Because the end of it's like, you know, a thoroughly good day by all accounts with a smiley face. It's a bit of an understatement from my 2009 self, but how to follow up. Well, Mum insisted that I show these photos to everybody in the family, one by one, after they'd been sworn to secrecy. So Sam, my brother, like when I showed him the picture of me and Danny Radcliffe, his face was just one of just sheer confusion. He's just like, he's like, what? He didn't know where I'd gone. This is the thing, I just disappeared for an overnight stay and the most of a day. My sister Amy, who was responsible forgetting my brother-in-law Matt, who took me and went on the whole experience. He had a great day. Like, you saw how he was like nerding out, going the whole time. He got into Harry Potter because of my sister Amy. So when she found out that he'd gone, to quote myself,
all hell broke loose.
She had agonizing dread and was gutted, for want of a better word. She even face planted in Sam's bed. The signatures on the Half-Blood Prince poster were hard to find. Like, I was like looking around for them because, like, you know, black and silver was a little hard. But Amy said it didn't matter, it wasn't so bad because I didn't meet Emma Watson, which is true. I never actually, in the end, met Emma Watson at all. But she was raging at Matt because she's like, "But I got you into Harry Potter," and he was just. I mean, let's face it. If you were the friend, if you were the plus one for something like this, don't forget you got to keep it to yourself. But how smug would you be feeling? And this goes back to the whole politics thing. My mum said that I'd made a very considered decision. Like, I'd been very diplomatic in picking my brother-in-law, because I could have picked my older sister, who was a good driver. My younger sister, I don't think at that age was a driver, and probably not a good one for going down to Watford, which is about 2.5 hours each way from here. And then, so the day after this, I'm still processing this, and I'm just like, I can't tell anyone. And the day after, I've written down here, Friday, try not to let it slip at work. It's like, you're like, oh, so, you know, it's like when you come in from the weekend, what did you do at the weekend? What did you do for 4th of July? You want to tell people, oh, I had a barbecue, or we had thunderstorms, or a family get together. But nope. You just went to the hottest film location franchise at its peak fever and met actors and directors and went on amazing sets, and you can't tell anyone. You can't put it on Facebook. You can't be like, hey, look, here's a photo, because the lawyers at Warner Brothers will hunt you down. And you just like you go to a university and you're going back on your film production modules and your script writing, and you can't be like, yeah, I saw a script for Harry Potter. Well, saw a script for Harry Potter and pre-visual. Yeah, can't talk about it. The amount of times that I'd have to be like, yeah, you have to like change the sentence as it's coming out your mouth, because you're like, nope, can't talk about that. I didn't go there. Nope, I haven't been to a film set. It was really nice, you know. Tell you what, it was tough. But just to end on, so I went to go visit on the Wednesday. The Thursday was when I start telling the family, and they're sworn to secrecy. The day after, when I'm like trying not to let it slip out at work, was the night I met, or sorry, not that I met Misha, that Misha fell in love with me.
What?
The talent night.
Oh.
Real romantic.
Sorry.
Romancing. No love potion for me. But basically, I'd gone. It was I'm a pianist, and I had deliberately not participated in the talent show. And Misha was there, and we had another American friend at uni, and I was serenading on the piano the Shy theme. But my left hand's doing like the ostinato. And I'm kind of like doing the swaying thing like some musicians do when they're on the piano. And I see Misha looking over at me. Like, my dad's talking to them at the back after we're kind of clearing away. And I'm just goofing off playing the piano. And I see Misha giving me like this look. Like, that was when I knew that she liked me, because like she kind of realized, like she looked a bit kind of surprised and like kind of blushy. And like, cut out. Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. Who else do we meet? Who did I meet? Like, I was talking about who I didn't meet. I didn't meet Emma Watson, like, ever. But I did meet the director, David Yates, the producer, and walking right past me was Helena Bonham Carter, Warwick Davis. There was another short actor whose name I can't remember. And there was Rupert Grint as well. On location, but I didn't meet, was Alan Rickman and Ralph Fiennes. I didn't get to meet them. Oh, who did I meet? Misha. Sorry, yes, Alison, correct. Yes, Misha. 2 days after that, when I was still trying not to let it slip at work, I'd met Misha, but we hadn't really interacted all that much. But that was the night, 2 nights after. And I couldn't tell, Misha had no idea.
No clue.
Misha, as you may know, is a big Potterhead, as I've described. She had all 6 books, had bought the 7th one, didn't read it. And
I didn't know until you went to go, when you went to go work for a week, that's when
yeah, it wasn't until months later that I told her, hey, I'm going to go down and spend a week working there.
Yeah.
So, to the love of my life, the day that she fell in love with me, did not know that I was actually secretly a film, I can't call myself a film star, but, you know, I'd been to the film set. So it was a good week. Yeah, you're quite right, Rachel. It was a good week. Going down, having a hotel stay. I'd never really stayed in a hotel up until that point. I'd only done like a B&B maybe, or like camper vans. So I'd stayed in a hotel. They were like, would you like a newspaper? I was like, thinking to myself, are they going to charge me for that? Like, or charge the charity, because I wasn't paying for it. Are they going to charge the charity? Like, do you want a wake-up call? And I was like, I have a phone alarm. You know, so I had that experience going to the set, going to Krispy Kreme, just all these things happening, and then Misha falling in love with me, and like I was deliberately trying to be like, hey, look at me, I'm playing the piano and I'm suave, and I'm doing the rocky, like that was deliberately me sort of doing peacock feathers, I suppose you could say. It wasn't, could you call it flirting? Like it was kind of like gentle flirting, like it was me being a peacock basically. And that was it. So guys, that is the day 1 complete. Because if you think about it, day 1 is like the biggest, like it was everything happened in that day, / the day before when we travelled down.
The donuts made it better.
The donut. Hey, how else do you process having been to Hogwarts and to everywhere else, you know, Gringotts and all that kind of stuff? What do you do? Have a salad? Do you? No. So, day 1 is packed full of all sorts of stuff. The rest of the future streams will be a different vibe because, as described, I had 2 functions and only really visited sort of 1 set because the production shot for like 3 or 4 days on the same set. Although lots of other things happen, like I see other things, other processes, and I meet other people. They didn't really give me any goodies, and I had working hours. So different experience. So being a peacock, yes. Hashtag Ben's quote number 1. It's the only real time that I can think that I have been a peacock. Is like I don't tend to flash this Harry Potter stuff. I'm only really doing these streams because you, the adoring Misha public, have. It's true. Like when we had people come to dinner, it's not like the first thing I tell them is like, "Hey, I'm Ben. I worked on Harry Potter." I don't. Like I kind of drop it in, kind of like if they've been around long enough for dinner and games, I have to be like, "Oh yeah, I worked on Harry Potter," sort of thing. Oh, there it is. So, oh, Heather, you've accidentally missed the tee off. It's what? July 5H. Oops. I'm sure you'll know how to correct that. So we'll do another stream. Oh, Red, I did promise you that I'd show you the Sainsbury's sticker. Here it is. Sainsbury's exclusive Dobby sleeve, because underneath actually is a different sleeve. There it is. I remember seeing these posters all around. But here's the fun thing, and this is actually kind of appropriate to this stream. This sticker here says, and I quote, "Text Dobby to 82100 for a chance to win a limited edition mini knitted Dobby." Now, I was joking to Misha before we came on that if you think about it, they've really not put a lot of money into that prize. It's not like it's a holiday, which is quite often the case with DVDs, like win a holiday to Scotland because that's where the film was made or whatever. A mini Dobby, like the real Dobby is like, what, that tall or something? So a mini one could have been like this tall or like subby sized. They've spent like £10 on the materials, like at best, and like if he's got a sock or a pillowcase on him, as you would expect, and then probably like bought lunch for the lady who's knitted it. It's probably like some like set dresser's wife. He's like, "Hey dear, I've made you a Dobby." Like, "Your husband has made you a Dobby." And they're like, "Well, we'll give this away," and they have spent literally more money on designing and printing the stickers for this DVD than they did the prize. That's good marketing. I wonder who won. So that is my Harry Potter stream for today. Harry Potter Part 4.
Yes, we will. We need to get part 3 up.
I will
I'm pretty
upload.
Sure I gave it to you.
I thought you'd probably given it me on a memory stick, and I just haven't done it.
Yeah, that would be it.
So you have learnt lots of secrets. You have seen things today,
Lita!
like the posters, the signatures. I actually don't really tell people that I have signatures of the 3, because if you think about it, a lot of people would sell that. Like you can go into stores and they've got proper frames, and it's like, you know, £50 for this person, £100, or like Carrie Fisher's like £100 for her signed pictures or whatever.
If we're destitute, at least we know what to sell.
Stay away from my posters. I've had it for 10 years. 10 years, well, 9.5 years, in a cupboard, because I can't have it anymore. I can't have it on a wall because Misha has her dragons on the wall.
Secret
That's how much I love her. I've let her put up her dragon that I bought for her birthday on the wall instead of my poster.
We have walls elsewhere, you know.
We have other walls elsewhere.
Yeah, we have other walls elsewhere.
Not big enough that aren't already taken.
In the bedroom has a massive wall.
So guys, would you like Misha to... yeah, don't forget to share with us in Discord, in the colouring channel, your finished dragon. I'd love to see what other designs you guys have come up with. I'm sure Misha would as well.
Well,
as illustrated by a lovely Sarah, the artist. You're very welcome. Thank you for listening. Oh, I forgot the 2 remaining trivia questions. I'm not going to give you the options. Just what subject did Hagrid teach after Professor Kettleburn retired? Do you know, dear?
the animal one.
The Aminal one. I'm sure that was its official name.
Paramagical creatures. Thank you,
Yep.
Rachel.
Correct.
That's the one.
The final one was, according to the 2nd edition of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, what is a snallygaster? Your choices are a kind of dragon found in North America, an enormous talking spider, a vicious cross between a Pekingese and a piranha, or the only food a Grindelwald will consume. Cross between a Pekingese and a piranha, just because it sounds funny. And you're so welcome, Lita. Thank you for joining me. And you got it wrong. It was the snallygaster as a kind of dragon found in North America. You North Americans should have known that. Of course, you see them every day. This is a dragon stream. Gosh.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Mischief managed.